Right, well, good morning and welcome everyone, and welcome to the members of the committee, advisors, staff, and also members of the public. And just a few preliminary comments. I need to remind you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting, and archived for a period of 3 years. Our purpose is to provide greater access to council debate, decision-making, and encouraging openness and transparency. I also need to remind all present that local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, council officers, and the public for comments made during meetings that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. Not that we anticipate any, of course. Excuse me. I'd like to acknowledge members and advisors attending online. We have Steve Girondi of Kiwi Rail, Mayor David Moore of ODC, Councillor Julie Jukes, the alternate of Whakatane District Council, Councillor Curly Aquino, the alternative ODC, and Mayor Tankos also online, and observers Deputy Chair Glenn Dougal. I now call for apologies. We have one apology from Mayor Tanui of ODC, Dan Kneebone, also Ports of Tauranga, and Marie Rutherford, New Zealand Automobile Association. Are there any other further apologies?
Failing Tanui happens to come from the Kawerau District Council, not the Opotiki District
Oh,
Council.
I beg your pardon. Yes, I did realise that. I hadn't even realised I'd made that error. Thank you for that correction. I'm sure the minutes will record that appropriately. Right, there's no further apologies. Would someone like to move that those apologies be accepted, please? Thank you. Seconder? Good, thank you. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. With regard to the order of business, I'd like to advise that item 7.3, the Matakana Island Ferry Financial Assistance Options and Assessment, is to be taken following item 6.1. And that's because we have the presentation, and I thought it'd be appropriate to have the people who are making that presentation here for that decision-making process on that particular item. So would I have a mover, please, confirmation of the change for that order of business? Thank you, Councillor Scrimgeour. Seconder, please. Mayor Tanui, all in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. I'd now like to move on to the public forum and remind that the public forum speakers, that each speaker has a maximum of 5 minutes to present, and that members may ask questions of clarification afterwards. We have a very full program today and a very tight schedule, so we will need to confine ourselves to that 5 minutes, which is the standard for public forums commentary. So the first member of the public forum I'd like to call is Debs Turner, who wishes to discuss bus routes 20, 21, 22 and the on-demand service. So welcome to the table, Debs. Thank you.
New people. Hello, my name is Debs. I'm here because I care a lot about the people at bus service. I've been a regular since the last bus change about 8 years ago, and no one wanted the big change, and it still happened. I have been to Christchurch, and their bus service is awesome down there. You don't even really need a timetable. You just walk out to the road and all the buses connect into town. You don't need a timetable. And their bus drivers don't even have a break at that. They have their break at the end of their stop. They don't go back driving not in service all day, wasting money. At the end of their run that I am. I believe if we run the buses anti-clockwise, some of them like the number 1, 5 and 2 would benefit and save a lot of time for people catching the bus on the week, especially on the weekend. The bus stops are too far apart, and why would you waste money running? I believe that the 21 leaves at 10 to 9 on the hour, so you can have better contact with the bus, the Mount bus, because you miss, on the weekend, you miss your, all buses. You missed all the connections because it leaves at 9:05. And it wasted a lot of time waiting around for a bus. So this morning I caught the bus, I caught the 22. I got to town before 8:30. So it's and then the 21 doesn't start till 9:00. So that's way too late to be able to be catching buses into town by 9:30. I believe the 20 should go down Girvan Road, then onto Maunui Street, down to Main Road, and then to Te Puke that way. And that means passengers are not having to go to Bayfair and then back to Palm Beach to get to Pak'nSave and vice versa. It just takes so long to get to Te Puke, you know? And if you ran it down Maunui Street onto Papamoa Beach Road, you'll have people that are catching the bus, the 21, they would have 2 buses to pick from, not just one that starts at 9:00 and finishes at 5. The Mount bus service is broken. The streets are way too small and easier to get. A minibus would be easier to get around, like the bus on demand would be perfect for down the Mount, because people have to walk so far to the bus stops. And people working, it's impossible to get the bus. So, and the bus stop at the Mount for the 21's too far away from the hot pools. I've asked about getting a closer one, but every time I ask, it's a different answer, because they've got the hot pools, got the cafes. Not everyone can walk far. We have a lot of elderly and disabled. When it's raining, it's cold, from Pak'nSave Plaza down to the Mount, but the bus on demand would be good. So why are we wasting so much money running all our buses not in service all day, when we can be improving their bus service for the passengers and make it a lot easier? Auckland's had a massive increase in their bus service. So why are we running our buses not in service? Doesn't make sense, when we can be improving their bus service. It's sad to see the bus on demand that's stopping, because a lot of people use that bus. If you're like in Grayson, if you're on Fraser Street and you want to go to Pak'nSave, it's 2 buses. And I met a mother with 4 kids on the bus. She lives miles away from the bus stop and she catches a bus on demand. She's going to struggle now to get to the bus stop. They don't have a car. Not everyone has cars. And I've had a few complaints about the Te Puna bus stop too, the school bus stopping. People have had to sell their houses because they can't get the kids to school. I believe in making some simple changes and listening to the people and making it a lot easier for our passengers. We would get more passengers on the bus. Thank you for listening. I just made it short.
Yeah, no.
I made it as short as I could.
Thank you, Deb. Really appreciate that, and we are very grateful for your regular feedback. And the invitation's open to contact the staff of the Regional Council on these operational matters at all times. And your feedback has been valuable in helping to address driver errors, like early departures and missed stops. We do appreciate that. So at this stage, I'd open the meeting up for any questions of Deb's. Yes, Councillor Schuler.
Thank you, and thanks, Debs. And I think what we all have to recognise is that Debs, as a user, is raising user issues. And when I talk to people that do use public transport, we forget to ask the users. We decide where the transport routes go, and we forget to ask the people that are using the buses. So when it changed 8 years ago, Debs, Were you, as a user of the bus, asked what your opinion of the proposed route new changes were?
Yes, we were, but they still went ahead with it anyway. Even though there was heaps of people, the room was packed, there were so many people talking. No, hardly anyone wanted that big change. And they still went ahead with it. They weren't listening to the people. It was all about what they wanted to do. And a lot of bus drivers actually left. So they had big shortage of bus drivers. I don't know if anyone remembers that. But we had a major shortage of bus drivers because the bus company that took over, no one wanted to work for them.
That is a chronic issue countrywide, the shortage of bus drivers and truck
Yeah.
drivers for that matter also. Any further questions? Not, thank you very much, Debs, and just repeat, you're most welcome to keep in contact with our staff on these operational matters. We do value
Yeah.
your feedback.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Good, thank you. I now call Lindsay Horn, under the title "The Future is Rail," as part of our open forum. So, Lindsay, welcome. On Heidi Hughes, who is our following presenter. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And I've also brought Heidi along, who's been supporting our rail initiative as well. So yeah, kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm part of the Future is Rail, and obviously we've got Heidi here, who's I'm sure a lot of you know her, a local transport advocate who we've been working really closely with in partnership through the Future is Rail. So I'm going to try fly through these slides. So what we saw in May is that we saw the return of, just getting the slides up, give that a second. We saw the return of a passenger train into the Strand, into the Mount, through Omokoroa for, I think it was like the first time in almost 20 years. And it was an amazing day. Heidi was on board the train and can attest to the fact that we had young and old alike. There was so much excitement. It sold out in less than 48 hours. The biggest complaint we had from people was that they couldn't get a ticket and that when are we going to do it again? Why is this only a one-off? I think there were quite a few of you on board who can also attest to the fact and the joy that it brought, right, Heidi, that you saw on board. And I guess what we wanted to say off the back of this is that it was amazing that it happened, and we really just don't want this to be a one-off and like, oh, that was cool that happened, full stop. We want this to be the start of something, and I think it really helped bust a lot of myths that a lot of us had maybe presumed, because I know this is not the first time rail has been talked about in these kinds of rooms. And, you know, we might not have actually thought it was possible that you can get a passenger train through the Kaimai Tunnel and that you can pull it up in the Strand and that it could work. So for us, it was a really exciting chance to see that something like this could happen. And also that the public was super excited about it. Like the amount of posts that we've seen where there's a lot of joy and excitement. So this is what our friend Calvin, who runs Tauranga Rail, has been posting. He's been using the help of AI to bring stations to life, and the amount of excitement that this gets from people. I mean, you can question certain things about the, you know, different bits and bobs, but it brings things to life for people and shows that, look, imagine if we did have a station in Papamoa. Imagine if there was a station in downtown Strand. We've got a little video to play, so if that is possible, just for those who weren't there on the day, I just want to show you the train going through Tauranga, if that's possible. So again, just wanted to show that this is a glimpse of what can happen. And just while that's getting loaded, this is, oh yep, that'd be great, thank you. So nice having someone else do the tech, because I'm useless at it. That's Matapihi Bridge. That was a cool moment when that happened. And I think, Councillor Shirley, you were on board that train, and I believe you timed how long it took from Omokoroa to the Strand.
Fastest trip I've ever had.
There we go. There we go. And we're lucky that the weather showed up for us. So that's it, going through the foothills to the Kaimais. And imagine whizzing through that rather than the congestion in Omokoroa. So just wanted to bring that to life for some of the people that weren't able to join us on the day. So thank you so much for pulling that up. So I guess we've had this amazing moment and really want to point to, so now what? This is great, but we don't just want this to stop here. And we really believe that now is the time. So the RLTP process is underway, and this is the opportunity to really get the ball rolling. And we came here and talked to you guys 3 years ago and saying, can we please start rail now? And I'm sure there were advocates to saying the same thing maybe 6 years ago and 9 years ago. And look, we just don't want to keep kicking this can down the road. I feel like rail will come to Tauranga with the amount of growth that we are seeing, and with what we're seeing with the City Rail Link opening, with the new trains that are coming to the Lower North Island. It is just a matter of time before rail continues to grow. And now is the time where we can really start getting the process underway. I'm not saying that you have to start, putting bricks in now and changing building things underway. Sorry, I'm just struggling with the clicker again. Thanks. So really now is the time with this RLTP process, that we don't want to let this opportunity pass us by. So we've got some really practical asks that we'd like to share with you, but just quickly wanting to point out that this is, we can keep in step with what's going on with the rest of the country. This is Te Waihoratu station in the middle of Auckland. This is not an AI image. This is it right here, right now. Like, it has been built and it is opening, and I'm going up next week to see it. I'm really excited. These are new trains that are coming to the Lower North Island. These are brand new battery electric hybrids. We're getting 18 of these, and this is what we could see in Tauranga as well. Rail is not something nostalgic that's in the past. It is our future, and it is happening already. And the Bay of Plenty and Waikato can be a part of this. Heck, we could even lead the way with this when it comes to interregional travel as well. So how do we actually make this happen? The first ask to you is that we keep the momentum going. And that is around enabling these regular event trains into the Bay of Plenty this year. We've got the cricket coming up. We've got international cricket. Wouldn't it be great to have the Aucklanders, but without their extra congestion? Wouldn't it be great to have the people of Waikato coming in and visiting us, but without clogging up the roads? That would be awesome. Our next ask, which connects into the third ask, is don't lock rail out of future options. We do not want to build over viable station land. And the way that we can do that is clearly identifying the rail corridor and potential station sites in our regional spatial plan. So we're talking to you about the RLTP process today, but we're also going to be talking to the other committees about the regional spatial plan. These two things go really hand in hand. And the last thing we want to see is that viable station sites do not get acknowledged and we lose them. All right, our next ask, this is the big one. This is what we are really going for. We would love to see a funded passenger rail feasibility study in the RLTP, and nice and high up the list. And our commitment to you is that we will also be talking to the other powers that be about getting that into the transport GPS and working with the other politicians, because we know this goes hand in hand. But I think a lot of you have really, really valid questions for us. Things like, where should the stations go? How much is this going to cost? What are the realized benefits? Like, where can this help us have high density housing alongside train stations? Who would operate it? Do we start with interregional or metro?
I'm just conscious of the time, and members will have their questions. So I don't think it's necessary to actually to tell them what questions to ask.
Thank you, Ken. I'll move along. The point I'm trying to make here is a feasibility study will help us answer these questions. So we would like to see a funded study in the RLTP that can be co-funded with NZTA Waka Kotahi. And our last ask for the committee is to future-proof and look ahead to the Kaimai Tunnel. This is something that's we're going to need to see electrification to enable battery electric, and that helps with the diesel fume issues that we're seeing in the Kaimai Tunnel. So our fourth and final ask is that you advocate to central government for electrification of the Golden Triangle line and work with KiwiRail on their business case that they have for that. So just to wrap things up, now really is the time. The RLTP window, RLTP and spatial plan window is open. This could be the council that really gets things moving and gets the answers that we need. Please do not kick this can down the road for another 3 years. Thank you very much.
But thank you very much, Lindsay. That's a very impressive presentation. Well done. I'd just like to assure you that passenger rail is acknowledged in a number of strategic plans and statutory documents. It's in smart growth, the UFTI, the Urban Form and Transport Initiative, the Regional Land Transport Plan. But the big one is right, the Regional Public Transport Plan. And I think your key ask there was to give a priority to a feasibility study, and your presentation is very timely because we'll be moving in very shortly to do that planning and the priority setting for the Regional Land Transport Plan. So your presentation timing is perfect in that regard. So I'd like to open the meeting up for questions from members. Mayor Denyer.
Thank you, Lindsay and Heidi, for your presentation. And just to acknowledge, I was on one of those trains as well, and it was a great day out. I think I'd like to support your ask for a feasibility study, because too often there's barriers put in the way of why we can't do it. You know, whether it's fumes in the tunnel, or there's no space for stations, or it's freight has priority and so on, and they're all valid concerns. And so I want to make sure, I guess my question, trying to get to a question, is it'd be great to have an understanding of the questions you want answered from a feasibility study, and maybe we help you with that, because there are questions that I and my community have about what questions we need answered in any feasibility study that can move things forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a more in-depth pack that we would love to send you with some of the key asks on this, but I think from our perspective, it would definitely be the funding of it. So how would you pay for it? It would also be the service timetabling. So how would it run, and the phased timing of that? So for instance, do you start with interregional and bring Te Huia through to Tauranga and pick up passengers on the way, and then that starts to enable Metro? Or do you start with Metro and then connect that through into interregional? I don't have the answer to that. This is what a feasibility study would do. The other really key thing that both Heidi and I are really passionate about is not just understanding the costs of this, but what are the realised benefits. And one of the biggest one is, and some of you might have seen Thomas Nash's report on transit-oriented developments that just came out, is this is actually a housing conversation as well, and where and how can you have high density housing alongside the station nodes, and how will that help with our congestion problems as well? So we would really like to see a decent chunk of the feasibility report looking at the realised benefits that rail can enable, in particular housing and decongestion. Also, just how I think there's a governance piece as well in terms of how does Bay of Plenty work with the likes of Waikato, Auckland, the port, KiwiRail as well, so that the kind of operating governance structure as well. Those would be some of the key aspects, but we've got this listed out and we'd be happy to provide it.
Questions? Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Lindsay.
Thanks
Much
so much.
appreciated.
We'll hopefully see you on the next train.
Certainly, it was as much fun as the last one. Yeah. And Heidi, welcome. And so we'll move into your presentation. Thank you.
It's saving time by being up here already. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I am here with the Wednesday Challenge hat on. So we are an engagement behaviour change program that focuses on the daily commute. We work with schools and we work with businesses, and we work with the commute because it is the most congested time of the day. So economically and socially, if we can get more people using alternative modes of transport during that high peak time, that is our low hanging fruit. It's also the daily routine that we have the opportunity to change. So as we said there, you guys invest a lot in public transport investment, and we invest in changing those transport habits, and that's what we do. So I'm here to look at how we can partner in the regional land transport plan. So we would like to be considered as part of the regional transport plan as a budget line for expanding this out into the whole Bay of Plenty. In terms of co-funding, we are already co-funded. We're currently not funded at all by any council, even in the Bay of Plenty, even though we're funded by lots of councils outside the Bay of Plenty. We get our funding from Tecton Bay Trust, and Tecton Bay Trust keep asking, we can only fund you for so long. You need to be co-funded. We will continue funding you if you are co-funded by councils. So we're already co-funded. So if the GPS on transport doesn't match up, then we've got co-funding for you. So could we just go? Oh, one over there. We go. I'm just a little video.
When Papa found out he was getting shot and started the investigation.
Hey guys, Ella here from the Weekday Challenge, and today I'm here with Emily. Awesome, lovely to have you, Emily. So I was just wondering, why do you catch the bus?
I catch the bus because it's cheaper, it's convenient, you don't have to pay for parking, you don't have to pay for fuel.
Yeah, nice.
I believe we need to do the Wednesday Challenge because it's creating good habits for our kids, building confidence in them and their whānau to be able to take to the streets and get to school in a safe way.
I think it's been really neat seeing tamariki that don't normally walk to school, actually encouraging their whānau to walk with them, because often when change happens it comes from the tamariki. So they're the ones that are initiating, can we not take the car? Can we come another way? Can you walk with me?
And for us as a school, it's really important that we reduce congestion outside the front of the school. It makes a safer place for kids and families coming in and out of our school.
We love the Wednesday Challenge. It's also connected in with our statistics and some of our maths, as teachers have used the data to look at changing trends and building graphs, and so it's been a really positive cultural experience for our kids at Mātua School. Check out the Wednesday Challenge.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm here with Daniele.
Hi, morning.
We're going to take the bus, and oh, here it is.
The bus.
All right, there it is.
And the bus in Tauranga. I find it very convenient because it's quite close to where I live, and it's close to my work as well.
Nice.
And also it's pretty eco as well, which is what I love.
You're tracking your journey on the Bay Bus website, seeing when the bus is showing up.
Yeah, so in theory it's just around the corner.
Brilliant. And here it is, you're right. Nice. So you're going to log your journey, here we go. Oh, what did you get?
5 Wednesdays in a row.
5 Wednesdays in a row, legend.
Me and Julio down by the school.
So we have now had 2 million of those journeys logged into our app over the last 5 years, and we're in 180 businesses across, we have been in 180 businesses across nationally, and we've got 125 schools engaged with the program. In Tauranga, we have we get incredible results from our schools program. Selwyn Ridge School, for example, 52% household single occupancy cars down to 18%. Mātua Primary from 40% down to 21%. Bethlehem Primary from 74% to 47%. Now these are stats that are, we get these stats live weekly on our data. Our data is live, and we're getting incredible results. And what we need to be is co-funded so that we can actually continue to do this. This program is super successful. Also, just wanted to say that what we have is we have our schools program, we have our business program. We also are looking at 2 campaigns that overlay those. One of them is Public Transport Month, which Waikato Regional Council has just funded for the Waikato. We're waiting to hear whether the Regional Council here will be funding it in their annual plan. It happens in September, and it's a real campaign to push and do these kind of things, these kind of stories that get then that all goes out on our social media, and it presents back to people those positive stories around mode shift, which is what they need to hear. And it involves a whole lot of competition and engaging people in changing their transport modes in a super positive way. There's a lot of bad stories and a lot of things that you hear about, all sorts of things around transport, but we focus on the good and the positive, and I think that's a really important thing that we need to continue to do. The other program that we're starting next year is Walk to Work for Good month in March. So we'll be encouraging people to take their car only part way and then walk the rest of the way, or walk their whole way into work, and earn prizes and rewards for doing that, and also get healthy points and health benefits from that. So this is a Bay of Plenty wide. We want to work with Sport Bay of Plenty, with the Regional Council, with all of the councils, and encourage people to be doing it across the Bay. We've got schools in Rotorua now, we've got schools in Taupua, and we want to get schools in Whakatane and in Omokoroa, and all of the schools around the place as well. So I'm rushing because I've got 5 minutes and I must be just about done. So the last one here is, if we get investment through the Regional Land Transport Plan, then we can multiply that benefit through our work with partners and sponsors, etc., through philanthropic organisations, through Sport Bay of Plenty, through sponsorship and all sorts of things. So it makes your bang for your buck go a whole lot further than it would have otherwise. And that's it. This is Public Transport Month. We would love to be able to launch this year with so that we can start to kind of get this underway. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much, Heidi. I'll call for questions from members. Councillor Scrimmager.
Excuse me. Thank you, Heidi. Amazing statistics you had there about the reduction in cars at schools on those school days. I'm just interested in how you take that to the next stage and change the mindset of people, that if they can do that 1 day a week, why can't they do it 5 days a week? And I think we all know how, I think it's important, because, you know, if we have to drive the roads, we see how much smoother they run during school holiday times generally. And so, yeah, there's a big opportunity there, I believe.
Yeah, there is. And we record the journeys on Wednesdays, but that bleeds across. We've got statistics that show that bleeds across the other days of the week. So this is a cultural shift in these schools. They see their bike stands filling up, their car parks are starting to empty out, and it's visible the change that's happening around those schools. And we see better safety around the school gates. We're only in 20 schools right now. There's over 200, 300, I can't remember how many schools in the Bay of Plenty, but there's hundreds and hundreds of them. And it starts with our children, because they, as they said in that video, the tamariki tell the adults that they don't want to take the car anymore. They want to walk to school because it's cool, because we might win a prize, or our classroom's doing really well. And that's what we do here. So it's that cultural shift, and it's a long game, but behaviour change programs like ours definitely should be in the mix, and they're currently not in the mix in the Regional Land Transport Plan. So not to any extent. We don't see a lot of really good positive engagement programs happening, and that's what we'd like to bring.
Any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Heidi. And I'm a competitive person, so I'm definitely on the Wednesday challenge, and I hate it when I forget to log a trip. Great statistics, and I think these are habit changes. I see two of my neighbours, the mums going with the kids on their bikes, and I know our transport plan is trying to get safety in terms of where they cross. Just in terms of the schools, the number you have, is there a resistance from schools to join, or you don't have the funding to be there? What?
We don't have the funding. We've got a list of schools that would love to join us.
And is there a cost per school that
The schools don't pay anything.
No, but
We
the
don't want
cost
the
of
schools.
you,
Yes,
Joy,
it
like-
costs us about $2,000 per school for a year to run the program. Yep. And that ties in all the work that we do on with the schools and
And that
engagement.
could result in a 20% decrease in school
100%,
drop-offs,
that's
which we
what's
probably,
happening.
possibly, have you done the economics of what that number looks like?
We just haven't had the resourcing to do that. Yeah.
But great
yeah.
program.
Yeah.
Could perhaps provide some background information, because I don't think anyone questions that this is a, very laudable objective, but it's always comes down to priorities. The Regional Council declined a 30,000 K request to fund this initiative in the 26-27 annual plan. And as you'll all appreciate, the annual plan requires council to strike a careful balance between affordability and the delivery of essential regional services. And this led to several initiatives not being funded. And the key point is that there's currently no NZTA funding available to support any transport demand management initiative. So that's what we're up against. But that's just for contextual purposes. Yes.
Could I
Chair-
just
Chair
add
McDonald.
contextual purposes around that? We spend $60 million a year on this service and we were asking for $30,000 to boost it for a month. But, we could return that on Farebox return in 1 month if we got 1% uptake in that. We hadn't heard until right now that we've been declined. But that's, yep.
Chair McDonald.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to acknowledge what you've just said, and that was not feasible in the 26-27, or was it 25-26 annual plan,
26-27.
26-27. However, given we are also leading into LTP, so I'm assuming that, that decision would have been based on our budget at that point in time. However, as I was saying, we are leading into the LTP negotiations in December, am I correct, Ollie? Where that could be a discussion on council table as well, so don't discount that. That's a no-go. But my question, also have a question now to Ollie. With the previous presenter and now Heidi, how do we start to factor that into our current regional land trust planning, knowing that we are going into the LTP process at the end of the year? Because I felt we didn't quite give them a finite answer around where both presentations were going. And what I want to know is there a pathway where we can pick up what was presented and what we're going to be looking at leading into the LTP process?
There is, Madam Chair. So we are currently reviewing the Regional Land Transport Plan, and that process runs in parallel with Council's long-term planning process. So the Regional Land Transport Plan will help this committee determine the priorities for the region. And as part of that prioritisation process, initiatives such as transport demand management, which is what the Wednesday Challenge would come under, will be prioritised against the other asks of funding from central government. Anything that goes into the Regional Land Transport Plan must then be funded through the relevant council's long-term planning processes. So what would happen later in the year is the drafts prioritised projects from this committee would be recommended to the regional council where LTP funding would be considered. So that's a long way of saying, yes, there is a clear process, Chair McDonald, and the committee will be embarking on that over the coming months.
Thank you. Just one more question then, and it may have to be beyond your scope of transport, and it's the issue that Heidi raised about the requirement going forward of them probably needing to establish seed funding going into ongoing philanthropic funding. Are we able to assist with what our current funding currently sits at, not just within transport, but with other areas of the council that may be able to assist her group around seed funding going forward? Is that something that we can look at where you look to other departments within council that may be able to assist Heidi with that?
So I would have to talk to other function leaders within council and provide you with some advice on that, Chair McDonald. But what I would say is through the recent annual planning process, council chose not to make a provision within the transportation budget to fund this specific initiative.
My question about other departments. Thank you. I.e. capacity and capability building.
Any further questions? Councillor Daly.
Ken, my question is actually to you. Sorry, Heidi, but you talked about NZTA not providing funding for the, things like this Wednesday challenge or the Public Transport Month. But in terms of the previous presentation about the feasibility study for the rail transport, public transport on the rail network, have you got any idea if NZTA would co-fund something like that?
I'd have to refer that question to our NZTA representative.
But nice to see you, Grant. It really depends on the flavour of the government policy statement, which obviously we're still awaiting a timeframe around the draft of that. But an adopted new GPS needs to be in place by next July, August, and that allocates, the focus areas for the National Land Transport funding to be allocated toward, and including defining the buckets of funding, the activity classes, and how much is in each of those buckets.
So a indication from our committee to seek that sort of funding might be useful.
No further questions, or thank you very much, Heidi.
Thanks so much.
Very good, thank you. I now call our next presentation for the forum and invite Mr. Maru Samuels, whose topic is the barge subsidy for Matakana Island and Ringawaia Island residents. Welcome, Mr. Samuels.
Mōrena tātou, tuatahi me mihi atu ki a koutou i ngā mema o te komiti nei, ki te tiamana, a tēnā koe, anō rea tēnā koutou, a tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Hey, thank you for having us here this morning. I'm here with my two cousins, Pamela and Pan, and we are, all three of us are residents of Matakana Island. And we're here to talk to you about something that's really important to us in that community. But also just to acknowledge yesterday, and I see a number of faces here, we celebrated 200 years of commemoration of Henry Williams sailing into Tauranga Moana aboard the CMS schooner Herald. And, back in those days, 200 years ago, 25th of June, 1886, turning on my timer. The Moana was a mode of transport. Was probably just as critical as land. For us on Matakana Island, it remains our only connection to the mainland, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today. I've circulated a paper, and apologies for those online if eventually I hope the paper will make its way to you, but it's just a short summary. What I can say is I bring some good news in that we fully support the recommendations that have come through from in the staff report. Our thanks to all of the staff members involved, Nikki Carling, and to Director Ola Haycock as well. Thank you very much. One of the most important findings in that report is a recognition that Matakana Ferry is the primary connection between Matakana Island, Rangiwaia and the mainland. For most of Bay Plenty residents, and listening to the great train presentation this morning, rail connection, roads are publicly funded transport infrastructure that connect them to work, education, healthcare and essential services. For us on Matakana Island and Rangiwaia, every journey begins with a ferry crossing. These are not discretionary trips. These are not luxury items. These are the everyday journeys needed to take part in society and the regional economy. The ferry is not simply a transport service, it is our road. The staff report concludes that identifies the huge sort of social barriers that we face living on Matakana Island through our community, and there's some clear statistics there. But the report concludes that the ferry assistance generates positive social and economic well-being outcomes. And that's really what we want to focus on is not so much where we are as a community, but what the ferry allows us to do in connecting with the mainland. And so we agree. The ferry is not simply moving people between 2 points, it is enabling participation in the wider Tauranga Moana and Bay Plenty community economy. So we strongly support the staff recommendations, explicitly the recommendations around 5B, and also the integral reclassification as an integral service. And it is all about, as with Henry Williams, it is all about connected communities, but communities must first be able to connect, and that's where our ferry comes in. We do acknowledge, the funding constraints identified by the staff in the current NZTA position, and just to signal, had a conversation with Andrew this morning. That is another stage, but we absolutely will be having, no surprises, conversation with NZTA at some future point, and look forward to that. However, we do encourage this committee to continue working alongside us, the community, to identify practical and equitable solutions through those future planning processes. In conclusion, for Matakana Island and Rangiwaia Island residents, as I said, the ferry, the crossing, it is our road, it is our connection to opportunity, and it is our connection to the wider Bay of Plenty. In closing, can I just acknowledge that 17 June, I think, last year was when the first report went up. There have been some considerable deep conversations and an advancement in this kaupapa in the space of just a little bit over 12 months, and we absolutely want to acknowledge that. And a number of people coming across to the island, meeting with our community, helping funding the survey, all those sorts of things, commissioning the survey, to the point now where we feel that not just the outcome, but the process that's been followed, I think is a fantastic blueprint for us as a community here. And so we absolutely want to acknowledge that. So tēnā koutou.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Samuels, and for acknowledging, the good working relationship that has established. And I'd like to acknowledge Mayor McDonald in the meeting last year when she went to the island, and I was hoping to join her, but I wasn't able to. But and I know there's been a lot of engagement with our staff trying to bring some resolve to this critically important issue of connectivity for the island residents. So thank you very much for that presentation. I'll call for questions, but remind you that we're about to move on to address item 7.1, which is a specific topic with our staff report presentation and the recommendation. So if there's a question relating to that, I suggest you hold it. But if anyone has any specific questions to our presenters now, I'll take those. Mayor Denyon.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief given what you said. And I'll shamelessly, this won't be a question, but I want to thank you for coming in, giving us clear confidence in the recommendations that have come up and your views of them. It was clear that appropriate consultation was needed, and I'm glad that's happened, and thank Chair McDonald for being part of that. So that's me. Thank you.
Questions of our presenters?
I was just going to correct you that it's a compliment for you to regard me as a mayor, but I'm a chair, not a mayor.
Oh, I regard you as the mayor. Yes, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And just a point of clarification, because I don't think I've had. So this is supported by everyone on Matakana. That's you're representing a very strong view from the majority of people on Matakana?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The big picture is to eventually get a vehicle subsidy, but, not to get the cart for the horse. There are some processes that need to be established here, and that's what we're here today about. Eventually, we'll come around to the vehicle matter as well.
That
At point, I just comment, an NZTA policy is they will not subsidise vehicles. As I understand, the only exception for that is the Rawini ferry across Hokianga Harbour, where it's deemed to be the substitute for a bridge. And it's an extension of the highway there, connecting the north and south Hokianga. But that otherwise, there's no subsidy for vehicles on ferries through NZTA.
Yeah,
at this
you're
time.
correct. PT is about subsidising people's movements rather than vehicle movements, and so that would be fairly precedent setting if we were to change that stance.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Andrew.
I think with all respect, we'll have that conversation when the time comes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, apologies. Thank you, Ms. Chair, through you. Tēnā koutou katoa ngā rangatira o Ngaitirangi. Fantastic to have you here. And I just had a really quick question because I was also picking up that the vehicle subsidy is actually probably most important. So I know we will discuss it later, but just wanted to get a sense from you regarding the preferred option in the fare and whether the heavy focus for you was solving that issue of the cost of the vehicle movements as opposed to what is the cost for just people movement. And I do note potential options of kaumātua free fares and also Ministry of Education already subsidising the students, which is good to look into. But yeah, just get a sense from you, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we've looked at the budget allocation, I guess the provision within your current budget, and we've considered the options that fit within that. We would love to get additional. So what we don't support is a reallocation of the current targeted support. We're not in a position to shift it from one hand of the community to the other. So would need to be additional support, and that's why we do support the 5B in that it's really about what we see as being kind of use of the provision in the headroom that does sit within the current budget. But ultimately we will, as I say, we will be back for the vehicle ferry. It's just a huge barrier and it is a huge cost, and we've got to at least try when that opportunity comes in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Further questions? Well, thank you very much for the
Thank you.
presentation. A very clear position, and connectivity is important for all communities. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
As outlined at the outset of the agenda, we'll now take item 7.3, which addresses the same issue with our staff report and recommendations. Can I do that, please? Oh, I beg your pardon. I've just been reminded, we've dealt with the late items. I need to deal at this stage any declarations of conflict of interest. No declarations? No, good. And we need to confirm the minutes before we move on. And I refer to page 8 of the agenda, the Regional Transport Committee minutes of the meeting of the 20th February 2026. Everyone happy with the content of those minutes? And I seek confirmation, true and correct record. Mayor Denyer, thank you. Seconder, please. Someone who's there? Mayor, Councillor Scrimmager. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. So we now move on. Right, good. So we have with us staff members, Nikki Carling, the team leader of transport planning, and Andrew Williams, the manager of transport strategy. And they will take us through the report, which is on page 81 of the agenda. Over to you, Nikki and Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to acknowledge the Matakana Island Ropu for attending here today and for their ongoing partnership in developing this kaupapa. Ngā mihi nui. We'd like to take the paper broadly as read. There's one thing I would point out though, and that is that the option B, 5B, that we have recommended, we believe is the best option for delivering within the existing budget and within the next financial year with little administrative complexity. So with that said, if anybody has any questions, please ask away.
Any questions relating to the report? Here not, it's all very clear and succinct. So on that point, I think we're ready to move on to the recommendations.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
It's recommendations 1 to 4.
That's right.
Right, we have a mover and a seconder. Any discussion on those recommendations?
Just like to say that it's 5B seems to provide a sensible option to provide a meaningful difference. The vehicle options at this point would have been a tiny subsidy and not really helpful. So I think this is the best option and I'm glad staff could come up with this one. So yeah, fully supportive. As you know, Matakana is in my district, and we support our whānau over there to take part in economic life and social. Yeah.
Excellent. No further discussion before we put that motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. That's a very timely stop for morning tea, bang on time. Thank you very much to the presenters in the open forum. We do appreciate the input. It helps us immensely. Thank you all. We could get underway again, please. Right, we'll have a quorum, so we'll get back underway. Thank you, and move on to item 7.1, which is the chairperson's report. So there's a number of very key action points and issues in this. There is one item of breaking news, which I think, and we'll have a resolution that will come on, but it seems that the breaking news is we've learnt that we may be eligible for a gold card exemption on the Matakana ferry for those over 65, which would certainly help Kaumatua and others. And we know that there are precedents for that. It is a matter of ministerial discretion. So the action point is that we actually write to them as seeking that discretion for that particular ferry, and that would go a long way to help. But Ollie will explain that in more detail. So over to you, please, Ollie.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on that specific point before I talk more widely to your report today, you're absolutely correct. So the Matakana Island Ferry Service is an exempt service and therefore is not eligible for the Supergold discount. However, if there is a specific agreement in place with the Minister of Transport at the Minister's discretion, the Supergold scheme can be applied. So if the committee felt strongly, there is the opportunity for the committee to advocate directly to the Minister of Transport for that exemption to be considered. If it's the will of the committee, we can put a resolution together to that effect for you to consider under the other resolutions for your chair's report today. So to cover the other items in your report today that may be of interest to committee members, there's a fair few things. So first of all, there were a number of decisions made through the Regional Council's annual planning process relating to transport. The first being around improvements to performance on our networks in Tauranga and Rotorua. So it was identified that we've hit the ceiling of what we can achieve with small tweaks, and there does need to be some targeted investment in both of those timetables to correct some of the punctuality issues that are being faced on both of those networks, and the Regional Council has provided some funding for those changes to be made. Staff are now progressing those and hoping to bring those changes into fruition by the end of the calendar year. In addition, our dedicated school network in Tauranga has remained incredibly popular with students, and we have faced some capacity issues on that network. We have resolved a number of those issues within existing budgets this calendar year, but with the growth that we're anticipating next year, we are anticipating needing up to 8 additional vehicles to meet the demands of the community, and the Regional Council have made funding provision for that from the start of the 2027 academic year. And then finally on the annual plan, 2 other items. First, I think most will be aware that the Baybus on-demand trial in Tauranga South is coming to an end. So that will end in December of this year, and will be replaced by a fixed route service, and we'll be using learnings from the trial to understand the most optimal route for the 51 when that comes back in. Finally, public transport fares increases. So council directed an increase of CPI, so that was 3.1% rounded up to the nearest 10 cents. So that will be coming into effect towards the end of July. Next on your chair's report, we have been successful on 2 occasions with receiving funding from NZTA's funds to improve bus driver conditions. So we've recently completed a project in collaboration with Tauranga City Council, delivering toilets in the Monticola Public Reserve. So those toilets are used by the public, but also by bus drivers. It's towards the end of Route 2, so a very challenging place otherwise for drivers to take breaks. We have recently been successful in being awarded money to support Whakatane District Council with an upgrade to the facilities on Boone Street in Whakatane Centre. So again, we'll upgrade those facilities to the public, but also provide high quality facilities for drivers to take breaks there. The other item of note from your report this morning, Chair, is a request from Mayor Tankos for the committee's support for a letter to NZTA around special purpose roads and their funding. I'll pass to Mayor Tankos should he have any comments in relation to that aspect of the report.
Tankos, would you like to address that?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for putting this item on the Mayor's report, on the Chair's report, and bringing the letter to the committee. I won't speak at length because I think the what's in the report and also in the letter itself are kind of fairly self-explanatory. But just to say, this is a significant issue for Whakatane District. It's something that we've had to address repeatedly to assure that 100% funding, and it's a particular concern for us when we have significant weather events and there's damage to that roading network, because that's when the affordability becomes a real issue for our district. So thank you for considering this matter, and hope the committee can support us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tankos. We'll take the rest of the report as read, but happy to take any questions.
Up the report for questions. Mayor Drysdale.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Firstly, probably it's pretty sobering to read this report on the amount of money we're spending on public transport. We're not really growing. We have grown, but in the last 3 years we're going nowhere. And it costs approximately $15 for every bus that someone takes. So, sorry, that's per passenger on every bus that is taken. So I guess my question is, firstly, I'd be interested to know how we compare around the country for the cost per ride for the people that are on this. And when I say $15, I ignore the fact that that's not all from our ratepayer. That's actually just the cost of what it costs, because whether it comes from the taxpayer or the ratepayer or fare box recovery, ultimately you've got to deliver a value for money service. So what does that? How do we compare around the country, and that per rider or per person per ride, and then secondly, what are we doing to actually change the game? And I know the punctuality, for example, and if you're going to catch public transport, it has to be a better option than driving your car. And if you're not going to be sure that your bus is going to actually arrive or get there on time, then you're going to drive every day. So what are we doing specifically to change the dial on driving more people into public transport? And we've just heard a presentation of a system that potentially is working well, maybe not necessarily in public transport, but a mode shift. And I think we've heard from that we've turned down, or the regional council's turned down, a $30,000 request, which potentially would have a massive input into this. So, you know, what are we doing and how do we compare to the rest of the country?
Huge question and a national dilemma with public transport, but I'll hand that one over to Ollie, who's far better qualified to comment.
Through you, Chair. So in terms of the comparison with other public transport agencies across the country, the Bay of Plenty does sit relatively low on the list in terms of the subsidy per boarding, in terms of requiring a high level of subsidy per boarding. What I would say, though, is a huge chunk of that is explainable by policy decisions, specifically the policy around free travel for school children. So almost half of our patrons are school age passengers. Most of those are travelling at peak times where the current policy is they travel for free. When our new ticketing system comes in Q1 next year, the endorsed fares approach as it stands is for fares to be reintroduced for children, which would bounce us up the league table and put us sort of back with the rest of the pack in terms of subsidy per boarding. So I just wanted to highlight that that is a specific policy that is hurting the commerciality there. Around punctuality, Mayor Drysdale, you're absolutely right. And whilst we have been able to make some small improvements in punctuality in Tauranga and Rotorua over recent years, we acknowledge that too many of the services are still running behind, and that is because of the age of the timetables, many of which were cast a number of years ago. So by small investments in those timetables in a targeted way, we're hoping to provide people with a punctual service. When we go and survey our riders, the two things that frequently come up in terms of detractors from public transport use are punctuality of the service, but also the need to change buses. So that is something that we're hoping to address to encourage more people on board. The other thing that you mentioned around growth is something that we're grappling with. The challenge we have, especially in Tauranga, is the demand presents itself in a very peaky fashion. Everyone wants to be in the same place at the same time, and therefore we are encountering capacity challenges at peak times. If you want to get into the CBD around 8 o'clock in the morning, many of those buses are full and standing. And we're actually struggling to grow in the peaks because of that constraint. That constraint is also the case on our school services. I mentioned that many of those are running at capacity. One of the challenges we face with supporting initiatives like the Wednesday Challenge is if we are pushing that market harder, the schools market, and trying to grow that, at the moment, there isn't the capacity available to carry significantly more children. So that would come at significant cost. And at the moment, we wouldn't be collecting any revenue from additional school age patrons. So all things that we're hoping to resolve as we go forwards. There will need to be some big considerations given to growing capacity in that strategic planning, long-term planning, so forth, regional public transport plan, etc. So we are trying to grow where we can, but there are some significant challenges ahead of us.
Okay, thank you. I think it's just very important that we look at some of these issues and we try to fix them prior to any looking at renewing any contract or locking in the future, because I think there's some fundamental changes that need to happen if we're going to make this viable.
Councillor Schooler.
Oh, sorry, happy to reply. We do have a paper, I think it's the last item on your agenda today, where we're taking you through the process that we're going to follow around the procurement of the new services. So hopefully the network planning aspect of that will provide some confidence to you, Mayor Drysdale.
Thank you, Chair. So just in terms of the on-demand trial, is there a report on that more than what we've got on the summary page, just in terms of understanding the number of passengers and the responses from the people using it, and also just to Mayor Drysdale's comment, the cost of that versus the $15 that he is suggesting it costs for for each fare, and also what's happening to the buses that are not going to be used after December?
Through you, Chair. So there is a 24-month report on the on-demand trial, which the Regional Council considered through its annual planning process. And I'm more than happy to circulate that with this committee.
Yes, please.
Yep, certainly. I will take that action.
Did it talk about what's happening to the buses that are no longer going to be used?
I'll come on to that, Deputy Mayor. So around funding, the challenge that we've had with On Demand is the trial, was the substantive part of the trial wasn't supported by NZTA. So the Regional Council has been funding 100% of the cost of that. The cost per boarding or subsidy per boarding for the On Demand trial was $25 per boarding. Compared to a cost to the Regional Council of around $5 per boarding on the Tauranga Urban Network. So there was a significant variance in the amount of subsidy per boarding being provided by the Regional Council, which I know was a major factor in the Council's direction around bringing the trial to an end. The trial is...
Can you just say those numbers again? The two numbers subsidies?
Yeah, so the subsidy required per boarding for the on-demand trial was around $25. The cost of delivering the urban public transport network, the subsidy required for delivering the urban public transport network in Tauranga, the local subsidy, so provided by Tauranga ratepayers, is around $5 per boarding. In terms of the trial itself, Deputy Mayor, it's running until December of this year. The trial is delivered by a private operator under contract. So the vehicles are the property of the operator, and the operator would look to redeploy those elsewhere within their national operations or offload those vehicles. So the Regional Council doesn't own those.
I should perhaps advise it's the second extension, as I understand it. We had an earlier extension on the on-demand trial, and that was quite strongly debated in the previous triennium with the Regional Transport Committee there. And it was actually the two city council representatives, together with Councillor O'Brien from Rotorua, who urged us to discontinue it. So Councillors Crowther and O'Brien and Taylor were the three who voted against the extension in the previous triennium. And now the Regional Council has come to that same conclusion, that we can't justify a further extension given the costings of it beyond December of this year.
Yeah, I think we're just very clear that this needs to be well communicated and that everyone's informed that it's happening well in advance, rather than telling everyone in November it's not happening, because it's important that people know.
Yeah, and for your confidence, Mayor, there will be a comprehensive campaign to make users aware of the change as we get closer. So I'm sure you know it's a fine balance between going out too early and too late. So there's an opportune time to engage, which we will do.
Sorry, and it might be covered in the late report, but so just in terms of our speaker this morning, are we going to ask the users, and are we going to listen to them when they suggest where the routes would be better suited? Because certainly some of the people I talk to using buses just talk so much that the routes are always changed against what we want. So how does that fit into our planning, please?
So balancing requests from the community with funding available is always a tension when it comes to public transport planning. The challenge that we have when we go out with options to change routes is quite often you almost have a 50-50 split of people supporting option A versus option B, which unfortunately does lead to a level of disappointment with decision making. In terms of any future changes to the network, where those changes are likely to have significant impact on users, we do always seek feedback. And we do have an extensive catalogue of feedback. So when people do submit on things, we don't discard that feedback. We do keep that on file. And then when we're undertaking reviews in a certain area of the network, we do always look at what feedback we've received historically to see what opportunities there are to incorporate that. So we do listen. We do look at what we can do, but it has to be within the constraints that we have with the planning of the network.
Mayor Tankos, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to follow up for after Mayor Drysdale's first question, because perhaps I've misunderstood the purpose, but I had thought that he was talking about the cost, regardless of any subsidy involved, but just the absolute cost for each boarding, and how do we make that more efficient? And I'm guessing that the most efficient thing you can do is just fill the buses up. And so two things. One is, are there other things that we can consider apart from just how we maximize patronage? And then the second thing is, if we're going to be charging school kids to use the bus, surely that's going to drive down use and make it less efficient overall, even though it might save us some money in the subsidy.
Through you, Chair. You're absolutely right, Mayor Tankos. When it comes to making public transport more financially sustainable, you've got two options. You get costs down or revenue up, with the majority of our revenue coming from fare payers. In terms of encouraging more people onto the bus, fares are a lever that we can pull. But I think probably the wider thing that we can help promoting is the real cost of public transport versus the real cost of driving. There's a lot of indirect costs associated with driving, and actually the recent challenges around fuel prices have made that apparent to people, and we are seeing a nice bump in public transport patronage as a result. So those levers to encourage people to use public transport sit with the regional council, but also with TLAs as well, in terms of getting people to consider other ways of making journeys where other modes exist. The challenge we have when it comes to schools is there is a ministerial expectation around increasing the financial efficiency of the public transport network. And that is something that was considered when the Public Transport Committee last triennium looked at a change to our fares strategy, and came to the conclusion that the policy of free fares could not continue under the ministerial expectation that currently hangs over us. It is anticipated that there will likely be a small drop in demand in response to introducing a fare. But given that that fare will be relatively low when compared to sort of the wider system costs of driving children to school, we're hoping that it won't have too much of a detrimental impact on patronage numbers, and they will over time return to the levels that we're currently seeing.
On that point too, as I understand it, we are the only public transport authority, we in the Bay of Plenty, the only public transport authority that offers free transport to school children. I'm not aware of any other authority that does that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sorry, when we talk about Motor Move, is it my assumption that there'll be standardised fares across the country, so we won't have any input into the fares? Is that?
Through the chair, no. So it's a standardised system, and there is alignment of concessionary products, but the Public Transport Authority in each region still has discretion over the setting of the fares themselves.
Sorry, Mayor Daniel.
I'm conscious that Mayor Drysdale has not been on the PTC previously. There was quite a lot of discussion on the fare structure for Motu Move, and I just wonder if maybe for a future meeting, a refresher for all members here, given that many of them weren't on the PTC, and also things might have changed with inflation or whatever in the meantime, but it might be useful to refresh us on that.
Yeah, we'll take that as an action. Thank you, Madania.
Councillor Julian.
While I live in the sticks and I'm not too aware, I wonder how far apart on some of these really high use buses round about 8 o'clock in the morning, how far apart the bus stops are, because in some places they have express buses. So instead of stopping at every stop, they might only stop, say, at every second or third, which allows for the bus getting there much faster. Certainly, I would imagine that 8 o'clock, most of the people are reasonably fit to be able to walk between bus stops if there's a fast one. Just a suggestion, but I've never been in a position really to use public transport except overseas.
Thank you for that comments. So the guidance on bus stop placement is every 400 metres, but obviously the urban form has to be considered and a bus stop location has to be safe. Express services are acknowledged as something that are likely to be useful, especially in Tauranga in the future, with the development that's anticipated at the far end of Papamoa, but also out south, sort of Belt Road, Tauriko, etc. So you raise a very valid point there, and express services are a key tool that no doubt at some point in the future will become a key part of our public transport network here in Tauranga.
Through the chair, if I could just add as well, the regional public transport plan has a KPI in it which requires us to try and achieve 80% of all bus stops within urban areas to be within 500 metres of a bus stop. So going off last year's numbers, we were at 70% across the urban area. So that target is something that remains in the forthcoming RPTP, which is a topic of conversation in the next item.
Chair McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I just want to make make a suggestion, given this last discussion, and the suggestion is to you, Ollie, is around some of the public transport and rental transport that's reported to us directly. And when I say us, the regional council, that some of that stuff, I think needs to start to move across to this committee and shared at this committee, just listening and the gap in information that's been provided here. And given the transition period we're looking at the moment as well, I think it will be of benefit for all of the mayors that are sitting here as well, just listening to what I'm identifying as gaps in what we know and what they know. And I think we need to close that gap and bring those reports to this committee. So it's just a suggestion of how we can moving forward.
Further comments? Discussion there. Just remind you, there are the tabled papers too. There's the letter to NZTA, the road safety issues, the Kaimai and the Potiki, that dates back to the action from 27th of February. There's the attachment letter to the letter to Minister Bishop, the Waiweka Gorge, dated 10th of April. And attachment 3 is the summary of the operational performance update, the Arataki. And then there's the sub-regional road safety mode shift education and promotion update. That's normally part of the chairman's report, and it was omitted, but it's now been tabled with you. So with those comments, we have the recommendations there. So yes, Councillor Daly.
Just a couple of further questions if I could.
Yes, certainly.
Just on point 2.7 in your report, the RTC letter to NZTA, just in the last paragraph where there's the letter requested NZTA prioritise consideration of safety and report back to the RTC on the proposed way forward. Have we had that report back? I know we've had presentation from NZTA at our own council meeting, but the Regional Transport Committee.
I can give a brief update. Is that the Kaimai letter? Is it not?
Yeah,
the
and I
Appleton
guess
Road?
for our Western Bay.
I mean, it'll probably come up in my presentation shortly anyway. So for the Kaimai roads, I met with Wayne Lowry, who's the chair of the Omanawa Kaimai Residents and Ratepayers Association, alongside Deputy Mayor Margaret Murray Benge and the bus driver from Kaimai School as well. And Margaret's been doing a great job of obviously advocating for this piece of road for a very long time. We had a really constructive meeting. There's some small things which we've been able to do within existing operational budgets. So I don't know if you've been over the hill lately, but there's some better signage to warn as you approach some of those side roads that are particularly tricky. Some better road markings, renewed road markings and things like that as well. Anything more structural than that and permanent long-term, intersection changes, stuff like that would need to be considered through the RLTP process for prioritisation. But remembering we also have the long-term strategic corridor plan, which Cole presented on at Smart Growth recently, which will also identify parts of that corridor that need to shift as that use continues to increase and the freight continues to rumble past. You may have noticed Kaimai as well at the school has had the lower speed limit electronic signage installed. So when I came over this morning, it was flashing 60. Observing still people were deciding to pass in the passing lane there, but definitely the heat was taken out of the speed, and that 100 Ks that we had formerly through there was not present. That's me. That's in the update.
Ben, my second question, if I could, is on the Whakatane District Council special purpose roads. I know you sort of talked about it briefly, Ollie, but is Whakatane the only one that has those special purpose roads with the 100% FAR funding, or do we have any other councils in the district that qualify for those? Or
I can't answer that question. Ollie, I think we'll probably be able to answer it, or NZTA, mate. It's a special classification. I think it relates to old forestry.
Yeah, it's slightly anomalous, the special purpose road category. There's a few around the country. So the Matahi Valley and the Waikaremoana 38 road are the only ones I'm aware of in the Bay of Plenty and Waikato regions. Others, I think the Cape Palliser road has come up in the news recently. Hollyford Road has been special purpose. They're all at various different levels of conversation as to, how to proceed going forward with some of those roads. Yeah.
Essentially legacies of the past. Yeah.
The reason I ask is because, Western Bay has just approved a recovery plan, which has got a price tag of about $28 million, and a lot of that is fixing roads. And talking to Minister Mitchell recently, he indicated there's no central government funding for disaster relief or, emergency repairs due to storm events. And he just said, talk to the local government minister. But I don't know, I see in the report it says that there was, some of these special purpose roads suffered from the same events. And basically, there's little central government support for some of these disaster events to fix roads unless they're a state highway.
That's a separate issue, though, to the special purpose road letter that we've got for Whakatane. That's, it's a general issue. This is a very specific issue that Whakatane has raised with us, and we're happy, I think, to support all the recommendations that we support that on their behalf. I believe Mayor Tankos, you have a question. I see your hand up there.
Thank you. If it is helpful, just to explain that the special purpose road that's part of the road going up to Waikaremoana was originally state highway, and it became made a special purpose road. And if you look at it, it's state highway up to the beginning of it, and where it ends, it's state highway again. So logically, it is actually part of the state highway. And my understanding is the reason it became a special purpose road is because there was a political promise to seal all the state highways, and then when they got to that one, and some others, they went, "Oh no, it's too expensive. We'll just change the status of the road so we don't break our promise." Matahi Valley is slightly different, but that's because it was conservation land entirely. So there are quite specific circumstances around how these came to be.
Sorry to persevere, but just got me thinking that maybe this committee could advocate for a bit more assistance in these climate events that are happening, because it seems a bit tough to put it all on ratepayers when, you know,
Councillor, we do co-fund recovery works through our emergency works funding as well, obviously within our own existing budgets, which get sapped by the events on state highways as well. So there's already arrangements in place for emergency financial assistance rates, which are generally about 20% above your normal FAR.
I guess it seems the bar to get across and qualify for these additional 20% up to take it from 51 to 71 or even 91 is possible, apparently. But it seems to be getting harder and harder, and the government seems to be pushing back. Well, I don't know if it's the government or the NZTA, but just would seem it would be nice if we could make it a bit easier to qualify for these additional.
Could I suggest that this is not an agenda item? It's a very substantive issue, and I think NZTA have sort of given a preliminary answer. Perhaps you could, for our next meeting, or sort of write in with what your proposal, what the suggestion is, and the specific problem, I think, rather than just try and do it cold here today, if you're happy with that.
Just come to me, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, sure. I'll move on to the resolutions. We have two resolutions on the order paper here. One, we received the chairman's report. The second one is to endorse the draft letter and attachment 4 in support of Whakatane District Council and delegates responsible to the chair to approve any minor amendments before signing the final letter on behalf of the committee. But we also have a third recommendation now on that matter that we foreshadowed earlier with relating to the Matakana ferry and the potential for the gold card subsidy. So I believe that's up on screen now. So would someone please like to move those three motions? Move Mayor Denia. Seconder, please. Enshula, thank you. And I'll now open it up for discussion. We have a mover and a seconder. Mayor Tankos, your hand up again, I see. Is that right? No.
Do I need to abstain given the letter being written re the FAR road, or is that a fait accompli? That's yeah, thank you.
Right, if no further discussion, I'll put those three motions. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. You'd like the abstention noticed? Noted? Yeah, good. Thank you. Right, well, thank you for that. That's the chairman's report, item 7.1. We now move on to item 7.2, the Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency update. And I believe we have a presentation associated with that. So welcome, Andrew.
Clicker is working with a slight lag, I think, so catch up a little bit. I was just testing it, Amanda, and taking it to the second slide, but it seems to have frozen going back to the first one now. Leave it there and just let it think. Can you press back slide? No. there was a beautiful picture of the Matakerapu roundabout for Mayor David to note on the front page. So I'm sure he has already noted that by the looks. Cool. This might be a little slow clicking between slides. Kia ora all. Lovely to see you again. I was absent from the last meeting, given I was in the middle of Africa somewhere. As I drove over this morning, I was quite thankful that there wasn't an imminent land transport issue on our state highways in the Bay of Plenty, which seems to happen ahead of each of these hui. And about 5:30 last night, I got a text. It is Careers Day at Takatimu today. So we've got busloads of school kids going out and walking through diggers and things like that. And there was the potential to gridlock the entirety of State Highway 2, James, when a digger broke down, turning into the site office last night. And I was getting texts saying, I think it's not blocking traffic. We're trying to find out more information, but then apparently it got moved. So
I was stuck behind it.
yeah, okay, there we go. So it was a slight delay, but we averted major disaster to allow the kids to have a play with that today, I think. What's happening in our world? We've mentioned fuel excise, tax issues, fuel crisis. Obviously, a lot of our revenue is driven directly from the fuel excise tax, and less people putting fuel in their cars means less money in the National Land Transport Fund. We don't know the true outcome of that yet, but I mean, there will likely be some form of drop in future National Land Transport Fund as a result of the crisis, which it looks like we're slowly easing out of when I drive past the various petrol stations at the moment. So that, means as we move into this RLTP, NLTP period, as we find out what is in a draft GPS, whenever the minister decides to land that, we'll continue to, be operating in more of a constrained environment, I imagine, for that National Land Transport Fund. So really important for this committee to work together to prioritise what is important for the Bay of Plenty. The other thing I was going to note before I get into the slides was just the Infrastructure Commission report recommendations as well. If you haven't read through those, worth a look. And there was talk of bipartisan support, and the government accepted all the recommendations in there. One of them includes a future, I think, 2028 review of land transport funding. I can't quite recall the wording, but things that will come up in future that this committee will need to participate in as well. National update. I think you know this stuff. Where are we at the moment? RLTP development effectively. A lot of water to go under the bridge until we get through to the adoption of the National Land Transport Program by the 31st of August next year. Funding assistance rates. Obviously, we're in a process at the moment of reviewing those as we do every 3 years. Your council, some council staff from various councils have been involved in that to feed into the process, and there will be an announcement on any changes to those coming up. The overall average for FAR across the country is 53%. This is so slow today. The other thing going on in the background at the moment is the State Highway Investment Proposal. So Nairi and Susan, who are in our system design team, and you may have met, who are online for the last RTC, are tasked with putting this together. It's basically us putting our best foot forward in terms of what we think needs to be prioritised on the state highway network alongside the RLTP activities that go forward to the NLTP process. We need to make sure we are aligned with GPS as well.
You had a question at this stage?
So I see with the SHIP, you've compiled an initial list of potential investments. I mean, do you want our suggestions, or is that come in later, or what's the what's your thinking there?
I mean, our LTP will talk to state high priority projects as well, I imagine. We can't release the draft SHIP until there is a government policy statement because we'll need to align with that. So the processes are a little out of whack. Yeah.
I mean, so I guess the key question is there opportunity to input into that, or is it something that just NZTA does on its own?
I haven't been through this process myself. We have compiled it based on, hearing the voices of local government and the requests that we get daily about what should be improved on the state highway network. So I wouldn't imagine there would be any surprises in what we put forward, but it obviously has to be evidence-based at our end as well. So, yeah. For example, the 5 key projects that Mayor Tanya will have for Rotorua are state highway-based projects. They would be considered for the SHIP, and we've heard that from sitting around the table with Rotorua Lakes. Yeah.
That's an important point, because I think in the last Regional Land Transport Plan, that's the bit that sort of fell through the cracks a bit, that Rotorua, many of their requests were state highway projects, and there wasn't a clear understanding in terms that we had to have this integration between the state highway or the programs and the local road programs. And I think we all have a better understanding now, but there was a difficulty with that, as I recall, in the last plan setting.
Yep, and at the end of the day, it comes down to prioritisation as well. Yeah. We talked to the NTS. Ollie, is there an NTS road show at some point for Motu Move? And that is coming to the Bay, and the RTC will be a part of that?
Yes, I don't have an exact date in front of me, Andrew, but we definitely have been contacted, and it is running in the foreseeable future. When I circulate some of the documents that have been requested, I'll also provide an update on when that roadshow is.
And that's just a view nationally of where our new maintenance contracts have landed. So the new integrated delivery model. You'll note that there's now one single Bay of Plenty contract, which was awarded to Higgins as well. So we're in the process of bidding those contracts in with new staff, new processes, new contractors in a lot of the parts of the country as well. We've got good continuity in the Bay of Plenty, but there is a new way of doing things. I won't talk to the New Zealand Guide on Temporary Traffic Management. I'll talk to all your councils separately about that at our inductions, but there's some approaching deadlines on that for local authorities. Average speed cameras, we've obviously turned on the ones at Tumanui recently, south of Rotorua, and the Matata Strait. You'll see on that slide that driver compliance at Matakana has greatly improved from 88% complying to 99% now with those average speed cameras in place. So I would like to think that we can bring some similar statistics to this committee in future. I can only assume that Mayor Nandor and David did not travel here because they're worried about the Matata Straits now. So attendance may be limited in future. Community driver testing expansion. There are going to be more community driver testing offices in the Bay of Plenty, so that we can help bring up some of the opportunities for those that find it hard to access those services. Weather response. We've had a busy year thus far, and every time it rains, we have a little bit of PTSD. Waireka Gorge, for example, would be the big one for us in the Bay of Plenty in terms of state highway network this year. We've had a couple of our operations team actually out there overnight observing the installation of the attenuator at the large Goldsmith slip site. So there's some major works underway there through night closures at the moment to try and rectify some of the issues that happen when all the water runs off the hills and doesn't have anywhere to go across the road into that gorge. A lot of the problems there were water related. We've got a big program of works under the recovery aspect that is going to leave it in a slightly better state than it was before the event. When you think of renewed culverts and things like that. And then we've obviously been fortunate to have the funding provided through the recent budget. I want to acknowledge the RTC for its advocacy toward that as well, alongside Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. And that's going to be an upcoming program of works over the next 3 or 4 years, and we need to define exactly where those funds are going to be spent in the gorge. Whakatimu Northlink Stage 1. Worth another site visit sometime for those interested. It's been probably a year or so for the councils, for TCC and Western Bay. It started pouring asphalt in the last month, so it's feeling pretty real now. The team continues to drive forward, within timeframes, etc. And having a careers day out there today is a great way of engaging the community and engaging some of our rangatahi on future opportunities as we continue to build some of this infrastructure. Stage 2, I'm obviously not going to detail on these roads because you know them. Stage 2, and you'll note down the bottom there, construction timing, we can't confirm until construction funding is approved. So we were fortunate in the budget for Waikato Bay of Plenty to receive Crown funding for Cambridge to Piarere to be constructed. Especially in what I mention is a very constrained funding environment. So that is additional Crown funding, 1.7 billion that goes towards Cambridge to Piarere, not National Land Transport Fund. And the other one's Tauriko West. So the team is continuing with the route protection, which is funded at the moment. Working really well with the council teams involved as well. And Omanawa Bridge is the really visible component of that, I guess, with that end of life bridge progressing really well as well. And what is a very visible entranceway now to the future road of national significance. Here's a picture of the site. So a few key things there. Earthworks for the new road alignment are complete. There's settlement underway. Traffic management measures have been implemented at Omanawa Road. There was a lot of contention about the initial traffic measures, which have been rectified by the team. And we have had no more complaints since that has been done. We even got a compliment, which is rare. The enabling works, again, very visible on the entrance to Tauranga. Maintenance and ops, we've gotten through that big scary map up there last summer season. We continue to work, obviously, on the Kaimai Road to keep that critical freight route free and open, and that is really the intent of our winter focus, which is just to keep things moving, unblocking drains, etc., responding to potholes, clearing litter, vegetation, all that kind of stuff. This is where I addressed Councillor Daly's question before, so we've completed some State Highway 29 safety improvements and maintenance. Another one you'll note when you drive through near Ruahihi Bluffs at the moment is that there has been a lot of work done there just to stop that from becoming a risk in future in terms of rockfall and road closures. Yeah, James.
May, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to labour the point, but this was perhaps the example I had in mind where you explained earlier how other than the line markings and small treatments like that, to get any safety improvements on 29 will take money through the RLTP. But as I said in the earlier conversation, that's not going to happen unless it's in the SHIP. So how do we make sure that that's in the SHIP so that when we get into the RLTP that it's all lined up?
We'll make sure that's considered for the SHIP. I mean, these are important things that continue to come up for our regional team as well, which works on the SHIP. This one, for example, with the long-term corridor study that Cole is working on at the moment, that is directly linked to feed into the SHIP and feed into NLTPs as well. And this is very much within that corridor. Yeah. Tauranga Eastern Bay of Plenty, the one I'd highlight here would be the Appleton Road Safety Works, and I know Marie presented in the public forum last time. We've had some good public engagement out there with Marie and the community that she is leading in a really great way. We sat down at the local Surf Lifesaving Club with one of our safety engineers a couple of months ago and agreed on a program of works that we could fund within existing maintenance budgets to really help address that that issue that they're seeing, the reality of fairly often out there. Mayor David was in the room. We have had some slight delays to being able to implement the works due to the changeover of our maintenance and operations contracts, but I'm told that today, Mayor David, that palm tree is being removed and the other pieces are all in the final stages of being priced up by the contractors. So we've had a discussion with Marie in the last couple of days and she's just pleased to see it progressing, as you can imagine. The other one's Pikitahi Bridge, well known to us all. Detailed design and consenting underway. Longer term will need to be prioritised in the NLTP, obviously, for funding, but the fact that it is an end-of-life bridge really helps aid with that build and replacement. So everything ticking along well there, probably apart from the current surface. Councillor Scrimmager.
Yeah, you note there that construction's expected to start mid next year. Do you have an indication of when that's expected to be complete?
Oh, completion. It would be a multi-year one, I expect, given the length that we'd be looking at, 300 metres. It's a fairly decent bridge. Yeah, but no, I don't have that on hand. The other one we've started work on and as a bridge you probably wouldn't really notice, but Rotorua end of State Highway 36, just north of Hamarana. It's the Hauraki Stream Bridge. So I think there's been a few night closures in Metaneo. I have not heard from you, which means that that has gone okay so far. I've spoken to the weather recovery. Obviously, the Wairoa River Bridge Cycleway has been of interest at TCC and Western Bay more recently. We're working on a solution there. It is quite complex. There's some iwi considerations as well. And we are engaging with your teams and keeping them up to date with that. Yeah, looking for a temporary solution and then a long-term solution. Speed management, so the school signage is basically completed. We should see all those variable speed limits outside State Highway placed at schools now. We've also, we're about to announce the outcome of the consultation we've done on those other intersection speed limits and pieces of road too. So I won't preempt any of that because that is a decision by the Director of Land Transport. Finally, strategic planning related regional deal for Western Bay of Plenty. We're obviously a key party for government and engaging with the implementation now of that, and there's quite a bit in there for transport, so we are excited to be at the table for that. The other ones I've mentioned, the strategic transport plans which are being developed by our planning team, new way of doing planning rather than looking at specific pieces of highway. We need to add an improvement to or upgrade. It is looking at the entire corridor over a long period of time, over many government policy statement periods to really get an evidence base for what we need to be putting forward for funding in future funding rounds. So we've got two very critical areas of roading that we're progressing with at the moment through current funding. And that is me. Happy to take any further questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Any further questions? Councillor Daly.
Alistair, talking about the, what did I say? Sorry, Alistair.
I look like an Alistair. Yeah.
Andrew, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I've lost my track. Your comments about the cyclone Vaianu response, you talked about implementing improvements as you build back, you know, like culvert upgrades and things like that. And that's one of the, and I don't want to labour the point, and we'll come back later, but I think one of our problems with our FAR requests has been NZTA responses basically build it back as it was, and the FAR doesn't really assist with building back better. Like, we know that our culvert sizes are undersized for the new heavy rain events, and we would like to do improvements as we build back things like that, by increasing culvert size, or, you know, improving curb and channel, or whatever. So I think that's one of the justification for requesting increased FAR, especially in recovery events. So won't labour it any further than that. But
Questions? If not, thanks very much for that update. Very comprehensive. Do appreciate that. Very helpful for the committee. Could I have a mover, please, that we receive the update report? Tapsell, seconder, please. Councillor Daly. No further discussion. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you very much, Andrew. Right, that brings us on to item 7.4, the draft Regional Public Transport Plan 2026 to 2036, approval for public consultation. And I believe Andrews Williams is going to help us with this.
Kia ora, councillors. I will hand this paper over to Tapu to introduce, as she's been heavily involved in the process, and Nikki and I will support her through that. So you're welcome to share questions with all three of us.
Koutou, he uri ahau no Ngāti Awa me Ngāti Hikairo, ko tapu wairinga ahau. I'm a transport planner here at Toimoana. I've been working on the RPTP project for the last 3 months. I've been supported by Andrew and Nikki beside me. And in the back we have, I just want to acknowledge Claudia and Kim, who might still be there. They've been working in the background on engagement and consultation. So the key purpose of the paper today is to seek approval for the release of the draft RPTP for consultation. In addition to that, we're seeking approval to use a special consultative procedure and establish a hearings subcommittee. We're also seeking delegation to the Director of Public Transport to make minor amendments prior to release. We will be taking this paper largely as read, but I will step you through the report in part to focus on some key decision points. And I would like to emphasise that the RPTP is a working draft. We will review and hear feedback through the consultation process, through hearings, and then there's the ability to deliberate as well. A key risk I'd like to highlight is that delaying the consultation risks misalignment with the RLTP and the future funding through the NLTP. So the development process to date has been fairly collaborative, guided by the former Public Transport Committee, with strong technical input from the Regional Advisory Group. Today, the draft RPTP is complete and ready for consultation approval. There is still committee direction required to finalise KPI 2 and 17. These are the only remaining substantive matters before consultation. So KPI 2 relates to the public transport mode share, and is to increase the public transport mode share for main urban areas by 6% by 2036. Evidence indicates that around 5% is the realistic upper range for bus-based networks in regions like ours. However, the former PTC expressed the desire for a more ambitious target. The 6% target is recommended as a stretch target. KPI 17 relates to improving public transport priority on the network, so that will hopefully address the reliability and punctuality issues. And it's measuring increases in managed lanes and priority measures year on year. So this includes bus lanes, T2 and T3 lanes, and traffic signal priority. The RPTP is subject to formal approval. Formal consultation will begin after. So consultation is a statutory process, and staff recommend using the special consultative procedure as it's a robust and a appropriate approach. It's fairly consistent with a lot of the planning documents that we have. So the consultation period will run July to August 2026, and engagement will include online submissions via Participate, our platform, targeted presence at community events, outreach across each sub-region, and hearings are scheduled for mid-August, with deliberations to follow in October. This allows us to have an opportunity to hear more from the public and refine the draft plan. To support this, again, I'll reiterate that we recommend the establishment of a hearing subcommittee. So this is to hear submissions, undertake deliberations, and to make recommendations back to the RTC. I'll take that largely, the paper is largely as read, and I'll just reiterate that today's decisions enable consultation and will keep the program on track to enable the RLTP and the NLTP funding process.
Thank you, Tapu, and thank you, Andrew, Nikki, and the team. We have the 6 recommendations there, but are there any questions before we move towards the recommendations? Mayor Denham.
Thank you. I'm conscious we last met. I had a workshop back in February, and that was to consider some fairly high level aspects, policies and objectives and so on. And then we get a sort of fully formed, almost fully formed public transport plan, which is great. And it's been, and I will just say it's been a busy few weeks with annual plan adoptions, I think, for all our councils. So I'm coming at it from there's a lot here, and it's been dumped on us quite quickly. One of the things I wanted to make sure was how to improve services, bus services, for example, out to Omokura and Katikati. And I didn't see that in here. And perhaps you can clarify whether the intention is to wait for submissions, or is that something that we can amend now? Or I don't want to delay the whole process, but is it something we can feed into at this point, or is it a procurement question later on, or what's the best way to approach that?
For the chair, thank you for your question. So there is some work being undertaken at the moment with the Waihi Beach service in particular, but the RPTP process itself doesn't mean that we should or shouldn't look at other networks, particularly the Katikati to Omokura one. So yeah, as part of the process, I'd probably implore the district council to submit on the plan, just so we can hear your formal submission at a staff level, noting that we have worked with staff heavily through the process. But yeah, that doesn't mean that because this plan is being drafted that we can't also work on network reviews.
There is a fundamental difference between staff feeding in and elected member input. And also I'm aware, been around a little while now, that when the plan goes out for consultation, yes, it can be changed, but there's sometimes limits to how much you can change it. And I'd like not to be caught out when it comes back to us and it's all too late to change it meaningfully. So I think, thank you for the suggestion that either council or perhaps our community boards can submit, and that if that can make real change, then that would be helpful.
I think that's certainly noted, but this is like a framework document for consultation. And the process really is when we set up the subcommittee under recommendation 5, that's where the real work has to go, hear those community inputs, including from the territorial authorities, and that will feed into the plan.
If I can just add as well through the chair, the process which is laid out at a relatively high level on page 98 illustrates it exactly as the chair's mentioned. This is a strategic document, and the next step in the process is an action plan. And so the intention is that this sets the high level strategy. We then look at those potential priority actions that are in the draft document and how they can become more than potential. And that would be through the action plan, which then would feed into the RLTP and your LTP process to look for that funding to support that. Going back to your first comment around a lot of the work has happened, I think you can take heart, and a lot of that work was very thorough and done by a lot of your colleagues and staff along the way. So yeah, I agree there's a lot of information here today, but I'd probably rest relatively well assured that your staff and other elected members through the PTC process have been very thorough in their approach, and I have appreciated that it's been quite a blunt instrument with us removing the PTC and then throwing those terms of reference into the RTC. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Andrew. I think what I'm trying to say is that I don't want to get to the action plan part and say, well, it should have been in the strategic plan, and be told in the strategic plan that we wait to the action plan. So as long as we land it at the right times, that would be helpful.
Further to Andrew's comments, within the plan, Mayor Denyer, we've got short, medium and long-term aspirations for each part of the sub-region. So Tauranga and the Western Bay is taken as one. So within those aspirations,
Looking ahead there.
Sub-regional thinking. We have got the significantly higher frequency service in to support the development in Mokoroa. So that is a significant step up in level of service for the Western Bay, flagged for the medium long term. So we'll make sure that those things come through when we engage with the community and take wider feedback on board as well.
Mayor Tankos, I see you have your hand up there.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate those responses to me, Denya. I'm also very aware that this is a lot of information. I'm new into this public transport space, and so I'm aware that a lot of work has previously been done by that committee, which is now with us. So I'm quite happy to support this going out to consultation with a view that any things can be brought in through that process. So thank you for that clarification. The only thing I really wanted to raise was I found the public submission around rail this morning quite compelling, and there was a number of items in there which I'd like to see us pick up at some stage. And the only one that I thought I was just wanting to clarify, there was a point about a passenger rail feasibility study. I think that needs to go into the RLTP rather than here if we were to pick that up. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. But for example, if you think the RPTP document as it's drafted at the moment doesn't provide enough hooks or isn't perhaps as drafted as you'd like to support or otherwise passenger rail, then now is your opportunity to have that say. As we say, this is a draft. We feel like we've got a pretty good balance, but there's always going to be tweaks that we can make around the edges, and that's the reason why we're undertaking a special consultative procedure. So definitely, again, implore those comments and submissions from your council and advocacy groups across the Eastern Bay.
Thank you. So just to be clear, you're saying that can be picked up through the submission process. Thank you for that.
Any further comments? We can move. Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Thank you very much, and nice to meet you, Tapu Wairunga. I did also want to mention, though, it just appears to be quite light in here around iwi or Māori engagement, and I think that's just important when you think about them being significant landowners as well. So I did note in here where it talked about potential updates to routes, and it also specifically Amaho Street, but it's directly opposite a very large iwi-owned Central Mall, who felt a bit surprised when that first came, and they said, no, we don't want that. And it just could have been a lot more productive if those discussions occurred earlier. So when we think about stakeholders, we also need to consider landowners and whom those people are. So I just hope that through the consultation, there's a specific effort on that, because I think I really only saw like one sentence in the whole thing around iwi engagement, and it was referring more to Papakainga, which is very, very, very small in comparison to the significant economic players and entities that they are. So that will just be my feedback moving forward, but thank you.
Through the chair, we are maintaining a stakeholder list, which includes iwi hapu contacts as well as Hauora centres, and we'll be directly sending comms to those stakeholders. The timing of it meant that we couldn't quite go through Committee Māori or send a notice out, so we're going through and engaging through stakeholder lists and inviting feedback that way.
Councillor Delling.
On page 186, we've got the, I don't know if this is the time, well, you did say it's the time to ask the question about what's missing or what's a bit light, but so objective 8, reducing congestion to enhance productivity, all the measures included here are about trying to reduce single car dependence, obviously, but also prioritise public transport on congested routes and increase the uptake of public transport. Considering we want to increase the target to 6% uptake, that's a very small segment of the population, and we're unlikely to make a step change in reducing congestion just by if we feel that that's an unachievable target. So I'm just wondering if there was thought to more emphasis on infrastructure development, and I know we don't like building roads and they're expensive, and there's not really a lot in here to target, you know, alternative perhaps bypass mechanisms or maybe increasing lanes through urban centres or whatever that may assist.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that the document had to find the right balance, and Objective 8 was brought in by the Public Transport Committee through the development process. The congestion objective is largely based around the fact that buses are getting stuck in general traffic, and a lot of the interventions that we can play with there are infrastructure related, but there's actually quite a lot of small optimizations we can do that are relatively minor to support that. So for example, activation of bus lanes or additional bus lanes or signalisation priority at intersections. So there's a list of potential priority actions for the Western Bay at age, I've just lost my marker actually, it's page 147. And some of those potential priority actions, the wording there is quite, it's meant to be potential, because what we're using that as a hook to go into the Regional Public Transport Action Plan, because we see them as potential now, but do we see them as definite action? So there's some things we can do within that space to support that congestion objective. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think we need to be a bit more innovative, and I know we're calling for submissions on this, but it would have been nice to maybe steer some of these submissions in a direction that might be more helpful. But and I'm not saying these aren't helpful, but things like, just in my rohi Te Puke, you know, we've got the TEL, which is told we've got like a 2-hour period in the evenings where we get quite a large congestion build up coming back into Te Puke from the Rotorua direction, and we've suggested in the past that one possibility to address this might be putting a toll-free period on the TEL for that congested period.
I think a lot of what you're referring to is more based around the Regional Land Transport Plan process and funding of road and infrastructure, which is best placed in that document and through the NLTP process. Ollie, you might have a few additional comments that you might want to add.
You made the point that I was going to make, Andrew. The Regional Public Transport Plan Councillor Daly focuses on the wants and needs of the public transport network. But your points are really well made. Public transport exists in a wider ecosystem where there are a number of other levers and incentives that can be pulled to address some of the challenges that the system's facing. And the Regional Land Transport Plan, as Andrew mentioned, is the document that considers that wider piece where the points that you rightly made will be considered. Perhaps the other thing to consider, though, is this sets out the needs of the public transport network. But then what happens in reality is then when projects progress, good examples around Tauranga where there are upgrades to corridors, the needs of public transport at that point are considered against the needs of the wider transport system, and then it's looked at how road space should be allocated, whether that's dedicated PT priority, whether it's managed lanes, whether something's done part-time. So that's when all of the considerations are brought together, usually through a business case process to understand what the correct treatment for a various corridor might be.
No further questions, then I'll move on to the recommendations. What I propose there is that we take recommendations 1 through 4 and 6 as a block, if you're happy to do that, because I think 5 we've got to actually set up the hearing committee essentially, and that will be more detailed. We'll have to decide how we compose that committee. So on that basis, and I'm referring to page 96 of the agenda, I've called for a mover for the approval of recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6 at the stage. Is there someone prepared to move that, please? Councillor Scrimgeour moved, seconded Mayor Denyer. Any further discussion on those recommendations? If not, I'll put those recommendations. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried, which brings us to the outstanding recommendation. That's recommendation 5, and that is to appoint a subcommittee to undertake hearings and deliberations on the draft Regional Public Transport Plan 2026 to 36 for recommendation to the Regional Transport Committee, made up of the following members, and we have to decide who those members are. It's important from just diarying it, because there's a bit of spade work to be done here, and everyone's got a busy diary. So I think last training we had, everyone was on that committee, and that was a sort of an organisational nightmare. So I'd suggest that we confine ourselves sort of to one representative from each of the territorial authorities might be a good way to do it. As chair, I'll volunteer to go on that committee. So calling for nominations, please, and recommendations for the composition of that committee.
Before you open up to discussion, so from a staff perspective, we've made a recommendation of a minimum cohort. So our recommendation is, as a minimum, we should have the chair of the Regional Transport Committee, at least one representative from each sub-region, and
So
two.
what's the sub-region?
So Eastern Bay, Western Bay, and Rotorua, and 2 alternate members. But it is completely at the committee's discretion as to the membership of the subcommittee. And as the chair mentioned, last time this plan was reviewed, the whole committee heard submissions.
I just asked, so what the timing of the hearings?
So they're at page
104.
Okay, thanks, Ollie.
So 19th and the 21st of August for hearings, and the 6th of October for deliberations, and then reported back to the RTC on the 20th of November, the indicative dates.
Quite mindful that we have 2 Eastern Bay mayors on Zoom and Mayor Tanui missing. Would it be possible for the 3 Eastern Bay mayors to get together and then come up with their representative, bearing in mind that they're not all in person?
Your question, is it possible? Politics is the art of the possible. So yes, it is, but I'm in your hands on how you'd like to proceed with that.
Perhaps we can ask the two who are on Zoom. I think Mayor Tanjos has got his hand up.
Mayor Tankos.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was going to propose something similar, is that if we can agree in principle a place at the table, because we should have actually probably foreseen this and had a discussion beforehand, but I know David's been away, there's been a lot on. So if we could reserve a place, go away and discuss what name we would fill that with, I think that would be quite helpful and a way forward.
Mayor Moore, are you happy with that?
Yeah, and normally what happens is the mayor that's not here is normally gets some voluntold that going on there, but yeah, happy to work out which one it is.
Yeah, the absent are always guilty. So we can just call that X from the east, I suppose, at this stage.
Western Bay, I mean, if Mahi wants to do it, then I'll be alternate or vice versa. I'm comfortable with that. Or
Yeah, I guess just being the biggest users of transport, we should probably like potentially have both the Western Bay and Tauranga represented on that, I would have thought, but
I'm happy to do it for Western Bay.
Jen and I will share it.
And I'd say I'm happy to, but I'm away on the 6th of October, so.
Mayor Tapsell.
I'll have a chat with my deputy, who's my alternate, and see who has availability then. Because October, I'm not too sure about as well. Thank you.
Just a suggestion, Chair. So what we could do, because we are seeking or recommending that the committee nominates 2 alternates. So we could have an alternate from Rotorua and an alternate either Mayor Drysdale or Deputy Mayor, which covers all bases.
Are we required to specify the names today, or can we just say the 3 sub-regions as you proposed and
Why don't we delegate you, because you're nominating yourself, why don't we delegate you to accept the decisions?
it's a good way around it?
Yep.
That way.
If, as long as Amanda's comfortable with that from a procedural perspective.
We are bound by the National Land and Transport Act or whatever. So if you're happy with that, how will we word that then, Amanda? The purposes of resolution 5.
We appoint from like 2 from the West can be filled, is that?
I think that's the purpose of the resolution. Yeah, that's sort of suggested. So we do it on the basis of the geographies, and I will stand in as representing the regional council at this stage, and that can be the resolution, and leave it to the chair to liaise and fill in the names, as it were. Happy with that as a resolution? Okay, I'll put that resolution 5 then. We've already had a mover and second for the first 4, so we'll need a mover for this one. Thank you, Jen. Seconder, Mayor Tapsell. Oh, technicality, a deputy mayor is an alternate and cannot move a motion. I'm sorry. Mayor Drysdale will move it. Second, Mayor Tapsell. No further discussion. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you for that. It was a bit complicated, but I think we got there. Thank you. Right, that brings us to item 7.5, the Public Transport Procurement Program update. And this will be presented by Jen Proctor, the Principal Advisor of Transport.
Thank you, Chair. Tēnā koutou katoa. So I am taking the report largely as read, but I do want to draw your attention to a couple of things, and I will just have 2 slides, I believe.
238 on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. So this report sets the foundation and provides the initial outline of the 4-year procurement program to re-procure the next generation of the region's PT services, excuse me, ahead of contracts expiring in 2027, 28 and 29. One moment, please. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So in front of you is a high-level timeline which illustrates 5 discrete procurement projects, with the first 3 being Rotorua, Tauranga Urban and Tauranga Schools. All 3 are currently underway in the design phase. This is a complex program with an ambitious timeline. We're still within a workable window, but staying on track is critical to ensure that we can have contracts in place for mid to late 2028. Stepping through each of these phases, we have design, which covers elements like network planning, fleet requirements, route design and timetabling. The procure phase has 2 streams. One is the development, which is where we prepare all of the contract documentation, the standards and the procurement plan for council approval. The delivery part of procure is when we are running the tender, evaluating responses, negotiating and awarding contracts. The final phase, which is the implement and mobilise, this follows the contract award where council is working with suppliers and preparing for go live. The reason that this is about 15 to 18 months. The market tells us that we need that for the mobilisation of services and to enable zero emission fleets and supporting infrastructure to be procured and delivered alongside other operational requirements such as depots, for example. The process for Eastern Bay, as you can see out on the bottom line there, is slightly different following the recent network review. What we've identified is that in low density areas, conventional fixed route services don't always deliver the best outcomes. So we're exploring complementary models like community or demand responsive services alongside a core network. Design will be undertaken through the latter half of 2027 and we'll come back to this committee with that design and options. In this slide, I just want to take you through a couple of the program considerations. One I want to draw your attention to is the unit structure. So the proposed unit structure largely retains the current approach, which is working well, but includes a key change in Tauranga, moving from 3 units to 2, and that's by incorporating the Northern Corridor, which is Katikati and Omokoro, into a new Northern and Central unit. Maintaining 2 urban Tauranga units still creates that competitive tension while allowing enough scale to attract investment, particularly as we move toward zero emission fleets. Our approach here will be justified through the procurement strategy, which is underway, and the procurement plan. The network design in your report, that's pages 246 to 247. It's an extensive piece of work and includes a technical review with findings made available for feedback. The proposed network changes will be presented to the committee later this year. Another consideration is the contract length. So selecting an appropriate contract length is a key decision for the program, and particularly for our larger scale contracts. Council needs to consider the optimum term that will deliver the best value for money, so operators can spread major investment costs such as fleet, depots, infrastructure and technology solutions over an appropriate period, and in turn offer more competitive pricing. Again, this will be considered through the work associated with the procurement plan and the procurement strategy. The last thing I want to touch on is funding. So this year, Council is submitting bids to secure funding from the National Land Transport Program, which is a 3-yearly cycle. Funding bids for the 2027 to 30 NLTP need to be submitted to NZTA by December this year, which means that while we can design improved services through this process, all changes remain subject to confirmed funding, which won't be known until mid to late 2027. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions on the procurement paper? Drysdale.
Yeah, just interested. So the procurement, do we need to have those contracts, I guess, confirmed before the RLTP for the funding, or could they be later?
So we are working, thank you, through the chair, we are working on a very tight timeframe in order to have those contracts in place in mid to end of 2028.
Sorry, but the procurement's 27. So do we have to have that for the RLTP or not?
So through the chair, through the RLTP process, we need to signal the ask of funding from central government. So we don't need to have concluded this process, but we need to have a good understanding of the scale of ask from central government.
But that could change or not? Like, if we say it's 20 million, and could we go to 25, or if the contract says that, or?
That would be a discussion with NZTA. Part of the challenge with going through a competitive process like this is we might get submissions that are over budget and under budget, and then there'll need to be a conversation around whether that can be allowed within the constraints of the system.
Right.
So it's an ongoing conversation with NZTA.
Note that our national procurement lead, Dean Hollis, is involved in having discussions with the team at Bay of Plenty Regional pretty closely.
Mayor Tapsell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. My question's really on the background of one of the significant risks identified of the proposed reform of local government, and that may shift the responsibility for the delivery of public transport. So in the interest of that, I've got probably two questions. What's the benefit of pushing it through fast, or seeing if the existing providers would be okay to extend their contract to maybe an additional 6 months? So to have that additional time after it. And I just ask that because I know that that is what we do as council and other councils when there is uncertainty on timing of when the contract will end. And then just secondly as well, it does seem like an awfully long time out, 15 to 18 months, and a lot can change as we know in that time. And so I would personally be quite uncomfortable with securing a contract to this value and scale without understanding what the world might be like then. And so does that align with the NZTA procurement guidelines and how they would normally procure contracts? I'm just wondering, I mean, quite honestly, from my experience of 13 years, 6 months would be fine. Before it, and if you have any issues, then you usually just talk to the existing contractor who's likely to be the same. But if it is going to be somewhere new, then of course they'll be happy to stick around for additional 6 months or so. So that's sort of just a bit of background and context to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tapsell, and through you, Chair. So we have already secured extensions for the contracts, and that's for the Tauranga Urban, Tauranga Schools, Northern Corridor, and also for Rotorua. Our sense is that we're not going to be successful in getting any future contract extensions. We've also done these extensions around the delivery of the national ticketing solution, so making certain that we mitigate risk around that program as well. I guess we'll also be guided by any advice that comes through from NZTA and also DIA in terms of the reform. And I think your second question, sorry?
Just about the NZTA procurement guidelines, which was noted in the report somewhere. So I just wanted to check if that is consistent, because it feels unusually long time out for me, but it might not be, just to assist with my understanding. Thank you.
And just to further to your question there, so the 15 to 18 months is to allow for new entrants who may actually come in. We're asking some big investment from these operators to come into the region, and so that period of time will allow them sufficient time to actually acquire land, set up depots, acquire resources such as vehicles, and also have a robust program around resourcing for drivers and also training. So that 15 to 18 months is also, we did do some I guess, market engagement with our current incumbent suppliers, and they feel that that 15 to 18 months is sufficient for both incumbent, but also for new entrants coming into the region.
Bill, I believe you had a question.
I did, thank you, Chair, and through the Chair. I've got, I think, similar questions just in terms of timing and pushing design and procurement and a long implementation when the uncertainty sits sort of where we've got procure on here. I'm also quite new to public transport but not new to the fact that we really want to see something different than what we've got. And we've heard in earlier reports that we are not increasing the number on public transport, and we need to figure out why. We also heard from our speaker at the public forum, and I gather she has spoken before, that the people using the buses aren't being consulted. So just from a number one, I'd like a bit more detail around what we're currently paying that we are replacing, and also what the going from 3 units to 2 in Tauranga, what that, I haven't got quite the visibility on what that might mean, but also just to get a better idea on our network process planning. What's the timing? Because we've got a design that's finishing quite soon. When are we going out to the people? When are those consultations happening? How are we going to be involved in what they might say, please?
Thank you, Deputy Schuler. And through you, Chair. So the engagement, we're taking a targeted approach to engagement to make sure it's meaningful and timely. As noted in the report, there will be broader consultation through the RLTP and the RPTP processes, and there'll be some more focused engagement. And in this report, it does outline that we will be engaging with our community, our local councils, also bus drivers and operators as well. So that will be part of that process.
Comment in terms of the comment that we're not increasing the patronage. In fact, last year we had a record high boardings, 3.4 million boardings in the last year, as I understand was the figure. So I think the patronage is growing, which is good.
As our population.
Oh, indeed.
So just can I actually physically get the timing of those engagement sessions? Because I would like to attend a few and would like to have them in my diary. So I just need to do that if we can get those engagement sessions, please.
So the proposed network will actually be coming back to this forum. We are aiming for September for that to come back to this forum as part of that engagement process.
Have the engagement that you're talking to the community, the sessions that you're talking to the community and the bus drivers, etc.
I'm not quite certain of the timing. That is developing at the moment, the engagement plan. Can we come back to you?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Further questions? Mayor Drysdale.
Yeah, I think just similar around the timing. I think we want to be more 15 months than 18 months. That just gives us an opportunity to understand where we're setting. We'll know the outcome of a head start, potentially start to have a guide on any bespoke legislation and actually who's going to end up being delivering. So I think we just got to be aware of that. I guess for me, we need more flexibility in the contracts. That has to be built into anything we do. We need to, I still believe there's a lot of work to be done before we even get to a route. As I said before, yes, to the chair, it is growing. Well, actually, no, it's going backwards this year. But it hasn't grown in the last 3 years significantly. It had a very big sort of move up until then, but the last 3 years, I think we've gone from 3.2 to 3.4 to 3.3. So it's not significantly growing, and we've got to do something to get that step change up from there.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Just a general comment from me, Chair, around reform, and just wanted to acknowledge that the local government reform piece has happened around us with this process and has added an additional dimension to consider. We are seeking advice from NZTA and the DIA around how this impacts this process. But as things stand, the contracts are going to end in 2028. NZTA, the advice to us to date has been that your only avenue is to competitively procure these contracts. So we will heed any advice that we get around our responsibility in this process as we get closer. Extensions at face value seem like a logical way to push this decision out to allow some of those uncertainties to be understood. But what I would say is we are, especially in Rotorua, for example, having issues with what's now a very old fleet. So we would be pushing that out for potentially a number of years, where we're already getting feedback that that the community is not satisfied with the standard of vehicle there. So we would be putting a lot more pressure on existing assets if we were to do any lengthy extensions there. So we'll keep working with NZTA and take any advice from the DIA as it comes through. Most public transport authorities around the country are in a similar situation with it's some huge statistic, like 80% of public transport operating contracts across the whole of New Zealand requiring to be reprocured in the next 3 to 4 years. So there will need to be some advice around this.
I'd just note that we don't have detail similar probably to local government, local authorities at the moment in terms of the devil being in the detail. So we continue as we are with our processes at NZTA and continue to talk to DIA about what may need to change as things firm up and become a bit more concrete in your worlds.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just, before we move the recommendations, or someone else does, I'm, I guess, not completely comfortable. There's been quite a lot of concern about this timeline, and our next meeting is potentially after the design phase is finished, and I would want to make sure that we are having a bit more information before the end of the design phase. So I'm just, this suggests that we're comfortable with what's in the paper, but I think there's a few questions we've raised that I would like report back on, maybe even by email or a report in a month's time before we're ending the design process, that cover some of the concerns we've raised. Is that possible?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm sure that's something that we can accommodate. I do know that we are reaching out to the local councils, and perhaps it's at a level with some of your staff. So we will try and make certain that that is incorporating yourself as well.
And just to add to that, we will again look at where there are options to compress elements of the programme to allow more time up front. As Jen alluded to, that lengthy implementation phase is because the market has told us that they are likely to only sell us zero emission solutions that require extensive support infrastructure, and there are timeframes associated with getting that in place. But we will talk to the market again and see if we can get any confidence around those implementation timeframes being reduced, which would provide more time up front. Final comment, that I think that schematic is a little dramatic. There is an overlap phase between design and procure, so we do have, it isn't quite as imminent, that close off of the design phase as the schematic might make it appear. Yeah.
Sorry, that's just raised a big red flag for me that we're going to a zero emission framework. So is that compulsory, or is that?
No, Mayor Drysdale, it's not. So the government have a target for all public transport to be zero emission by 2035. The challenge is, regardless of local policy, the public transport market has shifted, and it is very hard to procure new or nearly new diesel or hybrid vehicles. So the market is only selling us zero emission solutions. So this is a market-led change now, not a policy-led change.
Guessing that probably adds cost and complexity, but I think we've just got to be sensible around it, that, we're already too expensive, so we can't limit our options, I would suggest.
It costs more and way more. Very useful feedback there, and I think we managed to accommodate those clear messages. Thank you for that. So I will move the recommendations. One, that we receive the report, the Public Transport Procurement Program update, and two, we note the proposed changes to the public transport units and that these have been included in the draft Regional Public Transport Plan 2026 to 2036. And just noting the undertaking that's been given to ensure that the communications on those issues that were flagged and raised are elevated, not just staff to staff, but also to the elected members. So that should be helpful. So could I have a mover, please, for those two motions? Thank you, Councillor Julian. Seconder? Oh, Mayor Daniel's already done that, so that's good. Thank you for that. I'll put that motion. All in favour, please say aye. Yes, certainly. Before we put the motion, discussion.
Yeah, I just, I think what we've heard around the table today is there are some concerns. Well, I've actually re-looked at the numbers. So we went from 24 to 25, we've gone up 8,000 passengers. We're predicted to go down 37,000 this year. So, we're not in a great space. We've heard the punctuality is poor. We've heard that it costs a lot to run the service. So it's really important that we actually go and try to find ways that we can drive this. It is very important, public transport, and we need a system that works, that people want to catch it if we're going to drive the numbers up. So we have to take that into account. And I think we're worried around the time frame, that we don't have the time to make some of the innovations. I'm also concerned around the timing, and that's not anything to do. That's where contracts lie and the reform that's going through, but the times don't quite align. And potentially it's going to be a decision made by a party that then hands that on to a new entity, and the new entity is going to be stuck with the decisions that are made. So I think it is very important that we have that flexibility in those contracts and the ability to make the changes to ensure that public transport works. So, there is certainly some concerns. I am happy to support this motion, but we need to be cognizant of the issues we have, and we need to be trying to find solutions, because this is something that will make a significant difference for our city, especially, but for the region if we get it right. But I don't think we've got it right yet, and we've got to be very aware of what we need to do to make those changes and redesign the system to hopefully work for more people.
Thank you, Mayor Drysdale. There's no doubt about it. Public transport's a very difficult area around the country, around the world, and one thing we do know, the problems and challenges won't change with the entities. The challenges and problems will be the same. It's just a question of how we go about it. But it is you pointed out, it's a huge, big ticket item. I think it's the highest expenditure of the regional council's functions is public transport, and that's with a huge subsidy from central government as well. So it is a very expensive topic, and it is very important that we be as efficient as we can while ensuring that the service for the community is there, and that's the challenge. Chair McDonald.
Yeah, I just want to say something as well, and I think it's to staff. The other thing I'd like to suggest is maybe, Chair, you look at having a workshop before you have your next committee, because obviously there's a lot of gap information around this table that I'm hearing, and it's going to be another discussion around our own table as around the discussions that have taken place in this committee today. And I think one of the biggest things that's biggest gaps that's missing. And Ollie, this is information I want you to bring back if the chair does decide to have a workshop before the next committee, is that there is criticism around the performance of regional council over the last 3 years. One of the things that I think that clearly needs to be brought back here is the cost that has been injected into transport over the last 3 years and what is likely to occur in that transport portfolio moving forward, being brought forward. I think that is probably one of the biggest gaps that's missing from the information that's been made available to them. So I think that needs to be brought to the surface. And Chair, I would encourage that you do have a workshop moving forward to cover some of the issues that have been brought forward today, and that, in my view, will not be able to be covered without a workshop going into your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that's an excellent idea, actually, particularly given this unique situation we're in terms of the Head Start and everything that flows from that. So it's very important that we are all on the same page, understanding the problem, understanding the challenges, and understanding the budgetary constraints. And that's a very good idea. So could I just sort of, I'll put the motion.
I'm sorry,
first.
with that I have to exit. Thank you.
Oh, that's very good. I'll put the motion and then we can have a discussion about the potential workshop, because I think that's separate to the actual motion. So we've had a mover and second, I believe, didn't we? No further discussion. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Now let's discuss the actual issue. Is there an appetite to actually have a workshop on the specific issue of what are the problems, what are the challenges, what are the potentials in terms of this critical topic of public transport?
I think we're a bit slow to get there, but that discussion heated up towards the end on that last agenda item. But I think it probably raised a good point that maybe needs to hark back to the previous agenda item on the regional public transport plan going out for consultation, because, you know, clearly the Head Start proposal that or direction that we're heading is for 3 sub-regional unitary authorities, and the question of delivery of public transport and the subsequent subsidisation even of this into the eastern districts is probably the most significant point. So I know Mahi said the majority of the public transport is in Tauranga City, Western Bay, but we're probably going to need to put some direction in our Head Start proposal about this issue, because you can just imagine if the eastern sub-regional unitary authority had to deliver public transport themselves, it would be a bit of a mission, I think. So it comes back to what's delivered, what can be delivered regionally, and what structure delivers that, whether it's a CCO or a government department even.
So I think the logical thing would be is to have that workshop on the challenges, problems, potentials, financing in the context of the new entities for local government. Is everyone in general agreement with that as a concept?
Yeah, in agreement. I'd suggest that we potentially also get the operators here so we can understand from their perspective what the challenges are.
I think you could invite them in for a presentation in that workshop. Certainly, that would be probably valuable input. Just what are their frustrations and what do they need in a commercial sense? So I think rather than try and pick a date now, we could perhaps put a note round I'm just sort of thinking on my feet here in terms of how we can practically put that into an action point. Ollie, do you have any suggestions?
Happy to take that offline. I think there's going to be a lot of emailing to look at availability and diaries. So Amanda and I will take that as an action, and we'll engage with all of your EAs and try and find an agreeable date and also provide sufficient time for staff to bring compelling material to support that discussion.
We might be able to provide someone nationally an expert in the PT space, whether it's procurement or otherwise, to support that workshop.
I think that'd be very
But let's
helpful.
chat about that offline too.
The more I think about it, it's an excellent idea and very timely, very important that we do. To the last item on the agenda, a verbal update and opportunities for committee members and advisors. And perhaps first I'd invite Inspector Phil Gilbanks, if you'd like to make a comment, Phil, and from your perspective.
Right, Mr. Chair. My only comment is that I think we just don't, with the public transport system itself, is that we get stuck in these 2-year cycles where we're not actually thinking. We've talked about rail earlier and how that impacts and how that should connect with everything that we're doing. It's moving our freight, moving our people. It's a viable option. It's probably actually a cheaper option too than continuing to try and add lanes and things to roading and everything else. So for me, it's a wider picture around the whole network that still needs to be talked about. Yes, our immediate concerns are our current public transport, but I still think sometimes we're not having those conversations around into the future and what does that actually look like, and we get stuck in the now. From a roading perspective, just so everyone's aware, we are sitting +1 in terms of our fatalities across the network at the moment. Heartening for this part of the region, that actually the higher fatality rate and serious crash rate is actually sitting in the Waikato region, being Taupo at the moment. So unfortunately, their numbers have brought up your current roading or where your focus is. But that said, that's just +1 across the network. We are seeing some pretty good driver behaviours, to be fair, and I must say, Andrew, that the point-to-point cameras are working well. For this, I had to give one of the warnings out to one of my own staff the other day that came through. So I can tell you that we are receiving warnings across the network, and yeah, it's unfortunate, and he gave himself an uppercut for that. But yeah, overall, I think mean speeds are coming down. The new figures have come out for the road policing investment program. I'm very proud to say that the Bay of Plenty, we well and truly met our requirements across the network last year, and we should well achieve them again this year, but also look forward to some conversations around what we are targeting and what we're doing. Oral fluid testing started to be rolled out. That's testing drugs, and for those that aren't up with the play there, is tests for cocaine, cannabis, methamphetamine, and MDMA, which is ecstasy, for want of a better term. That's going through at the moment, and we're rolling that out across our policing staff, and have started some oral fluid testing and have had some positive results, which is sad, but it does show that it is out there and very prevalent within our society, and that comes across in the wastewater testing and everything else, so it's not a surprise to anyone. But from a policing perspective, yeah, we're heading into the winter, so wet roads, we're just fingers crossed that people behave themselves.
Very good. Thank you for those comments, Phil. We don't have any of other committee advisors here, so Councillor Skula, your comment? So if there's no further comments, I think we've gone through the agenda, and thank you all for your participation and contributions. Quite a hefty agenda today. As you'll be aware, we've actually combined the public transport with the Regional Transport Committee, and I think it's actually working because it's actually integrating public transport with that overall transport situation, which I think is a positive move. So, we managed it. We're only half an hour over time from what we originally proposed, which isn't too bad. So, thanks for your contribution, participation, and I'll declare the meeting closed at 12:45. And invite you all to join us for a light lunch and refreshment